More than 100 years ago, unforeseen biological disasters almost completely wiped out humanity. The dead mutated and attacked the survivors. The world will never be the same again. It's become purgatory. Some of the survivors were able to discover superpowers as mutants and began to confront the monsters. In the year 2145, they united in armies and stood in defense of the human world. It was a terrible war that took millions of lives. The superhumans fought honorably, but the monsters were much stronger. Mutants have managed to break through all human defense lines, and the final battle took place in the capital of China. By that time, the monsters had wiped out almost all the first and second-class warriors. Only a small group of third-class warriors remained. In the final battle, these fighters will face a titanic mutant. To defeat him, they have no chance. But they can't just give up either. It's better to try to do something and die than to do nothing. Such an idea, the boys believed when they went on the attack. But as they tried to approach the monster, he grabbed them. Because of the powerful tentacles, the fighters couldn't use their powers. Through them, the mutant drained the life force from the people. Feeling their life energy leaving them, the guys realized it was the end. Suddenly, there was an explosion, and bright flashes of light appeared. Everything happened so fast that the guys didn't even realize what happened. Feeling the solid ground beneath his feet, the guy with the hammer said, "What is that? Was that lightning?"
"No, it was just me!" There was a voice in response.
Their savior turned out to be the country's greatest divine-level warrior known as the Sword Demon, named Jin. Warriors were usually divided into 3 classes, depending on their strength level. But Jin was outside of this system, his talent surpassing any hero by times. This guy could single-handedly turn the tide of war. That's how insane his power is. The 3rd grade squad, when they saw the Sword Demon, they cheered up, as the archer suddenly shouted, "Sir, upstairs mutant, be careful!" Being the strongest of humans, the genie had often fought mutants of extra class. But this was the first time he had seen a monster with such an aura. He was completely different. He looked like a human, and unlike normal mutants, he didn't immediately attack, but only watched with interest. But only Jin felt the difference. For the rest of the guys, this mutant was no different from a normal monster. All their lives, from the moment they woke up, they've been taught only one thing: see the monster, kill it. But that was their biggest mistake. The guys wanted to show off their abilities to our hero. And the mutant, sensing danger, didn't stand on ceremony and simply finished off the 2 guys. And he didn't just kill them, he turned them into nothing. No blood, no bones, just weapons. Seeing what had happened to her partners, the girl seized on a primal fear. Nothing like she'd ever seen or heard of before, but she wasn't going to stand idly by. But just as she was about to attack, the monster moved behind her back to tear her apart. Luckily for her, Jin made it before the mutant could do anything. The moment his blade made contact with the monster's claws, our hero realized he was dealing with a so-called general. To engage such a monster one-on-one would be suicidal. Realizing that things could get ugly, our hero ordered the girl to retreat. While he, tries to buy time, Jin was the strongest of the humans, but even he wasn't all that strong, and he wasn't immortal. The situation was aggravated by the fact that the monster had broken our hero's sword with a single blow. The guy had fought generals before, but even they weren't as strong as this one. Ordinary monsters are divided into 3 levels. Higher monsters are also divided into 3 levels. But this one surpasses all of them in times. It's safe to say that it's a level 4 general. Jin needs to put his best foot forward to win this fight. His nickname, Sword Demon, our hero received for his ability to awaken demonic energy in himself and release it through his sword. No monster in existence was capable of withstanding such power, so Jin had no doubt that he'd come out a winner today as always. But he forgot one very important rule. No matter how strong you are, never underestimate your opponent. And today, this mistake cost our hero his life. The general just pierced his heart through and through. Like this, mankind has lost its strongest warrior and lost faith in victory. While our hero's heart was still beating, the mutant tore his body apart. The news that the Sword Demon was no longer alive and quickly reached the general's staff. The commander-in-chief realized that from now on, the time allotted to the men would be counted in days. He only regretted one thing now: that they hadn't found Jin sooner and given him more time to train. All defense lines that were engaged have been destroyed, but it allowed the 3rd level to inflict the maximum power of nuclear warheads. There is no more chance of victory and death is imminent. Now the people were faced with a very important choice: to give up their house to the monster and die in battle, or to destroy everything. During the years of war, the hatred of monsters had grown so much that every warrior was willing to sacrifice everything just to kill as many monsters as possible. So when the choice came down to just surrender or destroy everything for the people, the choice became obvious. With all their nukes, the humans blew the planet to hell, destroying all the mutants and themselves along with it. Good morning, everyone. Today, November 6th, 2142nd year. Security Zone Plan number 337 is pending. Breaking news. Number 67. The Dunhai security wave has been attacked by sea monsters. Surviving residents require urgent evacuation. After his death, Jin woke up on one of the military bases. The last thing he remembered was the monster ripping his arms off. Looking around, our hero realized that he was in a prison cell. After a while, 2 soldiers approached him. When one of the guys came into the cell, one of the guys said, "Let's kill him. We already got the money. By the way, yes, he's not after the awakened ones, and no one will be looking for a petty dryad," replied the other one snidely. And that's when it hit Gene. He went back 3 years to the day he took his superpower test. He couldn't pass it last time because someone interfered. But now they're like they used to be. Last time, those 2 shot him, but he was able to survive thanks to the demon energy hidden inside. But since the universe gave our hero another chance, this time he decided to make it perfect, so that at the most crucial moment, he would not lose the battle and save mankind from destruction. In a previous life, Jin failed the test. He had to wander through garbage dumps and survive, until the military discovered that he had a divine talent. By then, China had pretty much fallen, and no one thought they could revive. He was level 3 in just 7 months, but he was still a long way from being the strongest. Losing to a level 4 general, that wasn't the only thing Jin wanted to change this time. In a past life, didn't have time to save the people dearest to him, his mother and sister. But as long as he passes the test and gets stronger, he has the power to save the world and his family from the apocalypse. Notice, the Doomsday Sword God system is bound to you. Mission details. Ask the liaison to touch the test crystal within half an hour to unlock and activate a system function. If you fail to do so, the system will disappear after 31 minutes. Seeing this, Jin was greatly surprised, for this was very different from the Doomsday system in his previous life. Perhaps it's because Jin is much stronger now than he was in his previous life at the same time. But it doesn't matter now, as long as he's getting stronger. Changing the system doesn't bother him. The countdown has begun. 31 minutes remaining. Freeze! Hands up! At the end of the corridor, one of the soldiers shouted. Apparently the noise from our hero's cell had attracted extra attention. Since Jin was a prisoner, the soldiers tried to detain him. At that moment, our hero sensed that the captain was awakened low level, all other people. The best solution in this situation, the genie thought, was to take the captain hostage and demand that he take him to the awakening crystal. But everything must be done very carefully to avoid unnecessary sacrifices. With one clean shot, our hero knocked the gun out of the captain's hands. And while everyone was trying to figure out what was going on, Jin took the captain hostage. Putting a gun to his head, our hero warned, "If anyone moves, I'd hire his brains." Assaulting a military police captain in a secure area is punishable by death. And our hero knew it. Jin's plan was incredibly risky. He could be killed at any moment. But no matter what, his demands were the same. No man in his right mind would do such a thing. But Jin knew that once the military found out his true power, they would forgive him. By then, the revival exam had already begun, with a fiery speech. 100 years ago, the world had ended, and the age of chaos had arrived. None of the tens of billions of people then survived. And it was at that time that a generation of awakened humans emerged and banded together to save the world. Today is the big day. And it doesn't matter if you have talent or not. The winners will become heroes, and the losers are doomed to wander. At today's exam, Lieutenant Mark Schwartz of the Armed Forces was in attendance. This man had an untrained instinct for real talent. When suddenly, military radios relayed information that an unknown infected had taken the captain hostage and was heading towards the range. Infected were people who had a special gene in their DNA that allowed them to awaken superpowers, but for some reason didn't. Naturally, on the way to the range, Jean tried to stop, but anyone who tried to do so was knocked out. When Mark, seeing our hero holding the captain hostage, said, "Put down your weapon, don't resist, and then you'll get a fair trial. Otherwise, we'll have to kill you as a rebellious infected." But in response, Jin only smiled and replied, "I'm not who you think I am. There's been a huge mistake. I don't want to hurt anyone. I came to the awakening ceremony to take a test." But our hero's behavior said the exact opposite. So Mark ordered him captured. According to the 133rd security article, only the awakened are given preferential treatment according to the rules. or the offender will face the death penalty for violating military orders. Simply put, only the awakened have the right to break the law. Ordinary people get killed on the spot. Not wanting to aggravate an already difficult situation, Jin dropped his gun, and the commander took the chance and attacked him, but he only did it because Jin let him. During the arrest, our hero did not offer any resistance, and did not even try to explain anything, just lay down meekly. Without waiting for a trial, Mark ordered soldiers to execute Jin for taking a hostage and threatening internal security. When suddenly a military helicopter from the awakened squad appeared over the range. A moment later, a level 3 awakened Commander Xiao jumped out of that helicopter. In his past life, Xiao was one of the legendary warriors who could single-handedly kill mutants with hundreds. The military district in which the commander works is looking for awakened ones, and since our hero was raring to go to the range, he would like to test his abilities. If our hero fails the test, the commander has promised to personally execute him. On Xiao's orders, Mark and his men prepared everything necessary for our hero to pass the test. Jean looked like the most ordinary hobo there were millions of. No one would have thought what talent was hidden in him. The so-called elite, who were able to awaken the unfortunate level, one abilities looked down on Jin. Because once awakened, even the weakest talent was perceived differently. No matter who you were, homeless, a doctor, or an aristocrat, you would still be considered above the rest. Such cases when ordinary people became awakened were quite common, but from our hero, no one expected such a thing. When his hand came into contact with the awakening stone, a violent force erupted outwards, the entire training ground being engulfed by Jin's aura. She suspected that our hero had strength since he was rushing to the range, but he didn't think so, and Mark was speechless at what he saw. Usually the awakening lasts only moments, imbues a person with superpowers. But in the case of the genie, it was different. The awakening stone saturated his body for several minutes. Every cell in his body was soaked with power again. The awakening level machine was off the charts, constantly increasing the level, and even after reaching the maximum values, the machine showed that the process was not yet complete. Xiao couldn't believe his eyes. He realized that a divine-level hero had just been born right in front of him. Even if the commander fights to the best of his ability, there's no way he can beat a genie. Watching everything that was going on, Mark had only one question. How could such a man have so much strength? And even after reaching the prohibitive level, Jin didn't stop. He became more and more saturated with energy. The currents of his aura were so strong that even the patrolling helicopters couldn't resist it. They were simply blown away by the wind. Realizing that right now the savior of all mankind was standing in front of him, Xiao ordered the range to be surrounded and no one allowed in. After about an hour, Jin finally finished. It was impossible to determine even his approximate strength level. Even the strongest warriors today have set their talent level to S. So given what he saw, Xiao could say with certainty that our hero was now an awakened level SS. When the test was over, the commander laughed and shouted loudly, "Oh my God, I didn't know there were people like that in the world, and you wanted to execute him. Those who an hour ago mocked the genie and thought him a loser are now afraid of him." The funny thing is that our hero actually had SSS level talent, but at the moment, he sensed that the awakening stone might not hold, and stopped. But that's not so important now. Now, while there's time, our hero wanted to concentrate on pumping the system. After completing the quest, the genie has a unique opportunity. Any skill he learns will be automatically upgraded to SSS level by the system. In the past life, even with the reinforcement of the whole country, our hero managed to raise only 2 skills to the S level and 1 to the A level. With the new Sword God system, our hero can literally learn a few skills and become stronger than he was before. Now, having completed the first quest, our hero has a new task. He needs to learn the skill of swordsmanship. But this time, the system had a certain peculiarity. If anyone they found out, that person would be destroyed. It's not entirely clear how it works, but it's not worth the risk. After a couple minutes, our hero was approached by Mark and Xiao. The commander promised the genie any reward he asked for, but the guy just mumbled in response. He was too focused on the system mission. Xiao was familiar with that look filled with terror and delight at the same time. Clapping Jin on the shoulder, the man said, "I understand. In his years, Uncle Xiao is also stunned just like you. You still have to get used to your new self. Let's go talk in my office," the commander added with a laugh. Xiao found out that our hero was falsely accused and almost missed the test. The man sent his men to take care of everyone involved, and promised that as soon as he found out something, he'd tell him. Also, the commander has nominated our hero to participate in the seeding process. This process only applies to the strongest, highest-ranked heroes. It means their placement in the standings. which prevents them from meeting in the early stages of the competition. Afterwards, Xiao asked Jin to tell him about his abilities. Since the boy couldn't tell anyone about the system, he decided to tell the man about his initial talent, telekinesis. Telekinesis was a rare spiritual talent. It would take experts to fully understand it. As a reward, our hero asked the commander for a book on learning high-level sword fighting. The local library was very sparse. However, they did find a book they needed. Having gotten what he wanted, Jin thanked the commander and asked to be released to his family. Xiao was happy to let our hero go, but introduced a small squad of guards to watch over his safety. Plus, there's an investigation going on right now about third-party interference in the exam, so the risk is greater than ever. As we know, our hero was not from a wealthy family, and he lived in a proper neighborhood on the outskirts of town. Instead of creepy and dangerous, but a house is a house. Security Jin asked to be dropped off at the entrance to the neighborhood, and he wanted to walk home so as not to attract too much attention. But the neighborhood was small and everyone knew each other, so the rumor that our hero had become a big shot quickly spread. On his way home, Jin met a little girl who looked like his dead sister from the back, when suddenly he said in a trembling voice, "Lisa, is that you?" Turning around, the girl replied, "Oh, brother, are you back already?" Seeing his sister's angelic eyes, a picture of the terrible fire in which Lisa had died in her past life flashed through Jin's mind. Pouncing on his sister with a tight embrace, the genie tearfully whispered, "This time, I won't let you down, I promise." Lisa was happy to see her brother, but she hadn't expected this meeting. The last time they'd seen each other was a year ago, when he'd gone to training camp. Lisa asked him why he was back so early, since the preparation lasts a whole year. "Don't worry, I've already passed the test. Everything's gonna be fine," Jin said without stopping crying. It was getting dark, and it was not safe to be outside. So Jin and Lisa decided to go home and surprise their mother. On the way out, the girl suggested we stop by the swap shop to sell the parts and buy a cake. But Gina laughed in response and promised they'd have a royal dinner tonight. During the war, there was a shortage of everything. Only the awakened could afford normal food, while ordinary people ate leftovers. Mom was overjoyed to see her son after a long separation. However, she was worried that he had returned so quickly. When Jin saw that his mom was excited about something, he happily told her that he had passed the test and had become awakened like they had all dreamed of. When the woman found out about it, she cried. They were tears of joy and pride. Past life, our hero went to a training center so his family could finally get out of that hole where he lives. After dinner, after waiting for his mom and sister to fall asleep, Jin decided to get pumping. Learning an elementary skill with the current level of strength was quite easy. After reading only once about this skill, it appeared to be learned. But most of all, Jin was worried about whether the system would be able to upgrade him to SSS actually. Opened the system. Our hero received a succession of reinforcements. Now the basic skill, stabbing, improved to SSS-Rank skill, Storm of Swords. Storm of Swords summons a stream of ball energy due to the very short time span, inflicting a devastating blow on the target. This skill is able to accelerate, pierce armor, destroy, slash, and dispel. Even in his past life, Jin hadn't seen anything as strong. Raising a skill to that level is cool, but there's one big problem. This is the price of its use, as much as 4,500 points of spiritual energy. Barring equipment bonuses, one use of Storm of Swords would theoretically require reaching the third level of the system. Luckily, our hero can use Storm Sword every 48 hours. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to use it even after using up all his spiritual energy. The problem is that the system forbids telling people about himself, so Jin can't explain the source of his power to others. In other words, he shouldn't use a Storm of Swords in front of people until he reaches level 2. Besides, the commander has yet to be told the seeding plan, so it's best not to cause any unnecessary problems right now. But this sword technique he had never seen in his past life. I wanted to experience it right now, and this desire was incredibly great. After the apocalypse began, the world was filled with spiritual energy. All over the world, a lot of dungeons started popping up. As the number of awakenings grows, expeditions are completed, and trials. Information about dungeons has slowly made its way into the hands of mankind. The military spent a lot of resources researching and developing test dungeons to train and prepare your own troops for a real threat. Naturally, the simulation can be stopped at any time in mortal danger. Safety in simulations has been taken to the extreme. Everything was done in such a way as to keep the soldier's body unharmed without a scratch. For a genie, a test dungeon is the perfect way to try out your new skill. To begin with, our hero decided to start with a low-level dungeon. to realize how devastating Storm of Swords is. But despite Xiao's permission, the instructor didn't want to let the guy into the dungeon alone. The instructor tried his best to talk Jin out of the idea, but to no avail. Our hero was determined. He wanted to know what his skill was capable of. Artificial combat apparatus transported the genie to the location of an abandoned city with a low level of danger. Abandoned city, one of the base locations that appeared right after the apocalypse began. The only weapon provided was a rusty F-rank dagger. The weaker the weapon, the easier it is to test the true power of the skill. So this dagger, it was perfect. Just seconds after appearing, Jin was attacked by a level 1 maroon cyclops, a rather weak and stupid mutant who was one of the first to emerge from the gates of the apocalypse. In his time, our hero has slaughtered over 1 million of them. Their weak point, a giant eye the size of his head. With one clear dagger strike, Jin finished off that cyclops. Killing a monster even in simulation, our hero received 1 experience point for system development. But 1 burgundy cyclops is too weak an opponent to test a Storm of Swords on. In an abandoned bank building, our hero was waiting for the toothy glasses man. This monster was so nicknamed because of its 4 eyes and sharp fangs. Unlike Cyclops, this monster was a bit smarter. But even so, the glasses man was still first-level trash, who posed no threat to the genie. His skull also just shattered with just 1 blow. Even though our hero is not in the best physical shape now, based on the skills he learned in his past life, it's not that hard to deal with mutants. But to test your skills, you need to find the boss of this location. From memory, Jin roughly remembered where the boss's room was. As funny as it may sound, the boss of the abandoned city lived in a mall, but getting close to him will not be so easy. This mutant surrounded himself with zombies that were in the process of moving from the first level to the second. Getting into a fight with zombies wasn't necessary, just more wasted energy and time. But unfortunately, these things smelled fresh flesh and attacked first, so the genie had no choice but to kill them all at once. Luckily, these zombies were pretty dumb. The only problem was that these zombies were immense. Realizing that he could hardly handle them all alone, he decided to just ignore them and find the boss. You could have tried Storm of Swords on this crowd of zombies, but unfortunately, Jin didn't get any experience points for killing them. So the only option to test the skill and get some experience was to kill the boss. The dungeons were always very monotonous, and after going through some of them several times, Jin already knew who he was going to fight. But it was very boring, so the military decided that dungeon bosses would always be chosen randomly. This time our hero will have to fight the highest mutant of the first level, Corpse Eater. Despite its enormous size, this mutant was incredibly fast, and the strikes of its claws left behind huge craters. Normally, it would take at least a 3-man squad to deal with a monster of this level. If this wasn't a simulation but a real battle, the guy wouldn't stand a chance against him, even with his heavenly skills. Oh, and plus he's a corpse eater who surrounds himself with a huge number of zombies. Even a level 1 elite squad would have tremendous difficulties in front of him. Well, that's not all that significant. It was time to finally test the Storm of Swords. Jin hadn't yet fully realized how destructive this skill was, so he decided to attack at a vulnerable spot. But even that can't guarantee any success, and otherwise he will have to leave the dungeon in disgrace. Once he was exactly above the corpse eater's head, Jin activated a Storm of Swords, and I have to admit, the devastating effect was beyond expectations. All zombies within a half-kilometer radius turned into ashes, and the boss lost his head. Jin knew that Sword Storm was an SSS-Rank skill, but he doubted he'd have the strength to take out the boss in 1 blow. And as we can see, he doubted for nothing. If it weren't for this test, our hero wouldn't have been able to imagine how powerful this skill is. For defeating a level 1 mutant, our hero received 5 experience points with half of it deducted, due to being in a test dungeon. In his previous life, Jin hadn't heard anything about items that could be obtained in test dungeons, and now he had even gotten one of them. The new gauntlets increased manual dexterity. During the apocalypse, the average awakened level 2 may not even have a full set of gear, so getting something is a good start. The purpose of the test was achieved, and our hero even got a nice bonus, so there was no point in staying here any longer. The results of passing the dungeon remain classified so as not to lower the morale of the soldiers in case of failure. Gina finished the challenge in less than 10 minutes, so the instructor thought he was scared of the zombie and walked out. As the shout suddenly rang out, who missed the level 1 squad in the dungeon? Didn't I say that you can't launch several people at once into a dungeon that is designed to be traversed by 1 person? Added the range manager. Not understanding what had just happened, the guy replied, "You don't understand. There was only 1 person there." The boss didn't believe the guy because he had received information that the level 1 boss had died. Putting all the facts together, It finally dawned on the guy that the genie had single-handedly defeated the boss in less than 10 minutes. On his way home, our hero accidentally wandered into the local market, where people traded weapons in exchange for food or other useful things. And little children were looting and robbing, trying to feed themselves. It was impossible to condemn them, for they were all struggling to live as best they could. And it's still a year away from disaster. The entire Tianfeng safe zone will be burned to the ground and strewn with corpses due to the level 3 mutant invasion. And just 10 days after that, there's a zombie epidemic in town that's gonna cause even more problems. While Lisa and Jin's mother live here, they're still in danger. To get them out of here, the boy has to get stronger. And meanwhile, there was a meeting of the top brass at General Headquarters. The big news they were discussing was the awakening of our hero, due to the fact that many heroes of high level had died recently. Jin wanted to be taken to the capital and begin his training immediately. Such a rush was due to the fact that the higher leadership saw potential in our hero. Some even thought that he was capable of rising to the SSS-Rank, considering that he already has a very high level to begin with. There were many doubts about our hero's training in the capital, given his origins. Hours later, the council was almost unanimously ready to vote in favor of training the genie in the capital city. But there was one person who opposed the idea. The head of the 4th district, Vlad Charn. Charn was known for his meager and meticulous character, but at the same time enjoyed great prestige among his colleagues. Vlad vetoed it for one reason only. Jin awakened with the attribute of mental will, and there hasn't been a high-level warrior with the same attribute in the last 70 years. And besides, as a rule, people with such attributes in most cases are probably weak physically and fight in the rear. And that's not all. It's almost impossible for people with this attribute to rise in rank. It was because of all these facts that Vlad opposed Jin's training in the capital. After all, he read it as a waste of money and time. His arguments had such weight and persuasiveness that he was able to change the minds of several county heads. As a result, Jin was removed from the seating project the next day and downgraded in priority. In the end, the top brass downgraded our hero to A, all because of his mental power attribute. Because of this, Commander Xiao had no choice but to stop developing his own plan to develop Jin. The commander was very upset by the news. After all, he believed that our hero was the warrior who could save mankind. The guards Xiao had assigned to protect Jin told our hero that the upper management had rejected him, believing that his maximum was level 2. Jin realized that all of this would slow his pumping down a lot. But now he was wondering why the upper management had suddenly decided that his maximum was so low, and then our hero remembered that mankind only learned about the mental power boost after the destruction of the Tangfeng zone. But that event was still a year away, and to lose this precious time just like that, our guy could not. Something had to be done about it, and immediately. The only option to improve the situation was to appeal to the top leadership directly, but without a solid argument, it was useless to do so. Now the only option was to reach the 3rd level alone, and only then would it have a result, armed with the Sword God system and the Sword Storm skill. His starting point is much higher than it was in his previous life. Since Jin is now banned from the test site, he'll have to hunt in the wild. Hunting in these conditions is incredibly dangerous. Any mistake can cost lives. This is why people are usually organized into small teams. But in this case, the points earned are shared among all members of the group. This slows down the progression, so Jin decided to hunt alone. Our hero went to the forest of rotting corpses, the most dangerous place in the area. In the depths of this forest must live 2 mutants of the 1st level, and one of them is on the last step of his level. An awakened person needs to kill 3 level 1 mutants to reach level 1. Jin has already killed 1 in the test dungeon. With a storm of swords, dealing with mutants of this level should be a breeze. But Jin wanted to do it without using a skill so as not to attract too much attention before time. And in addition, when killing monsters without skills, not only mental strength increases, but also physical strength. Awakened with the attribute of mental will weakest in terms of physical fitness. At least that's what the higher-ups thought. And Jin wanted to break that stereotype, especially since in the future, physical strength will not be as important when facing high-level mutants. Mental strength is much more important, and the sooner our hero can prove it to the top brass, the better chance the people have of winning. When suddenly, deep in the woods, there was a machine gun blast, right from where the tree demon lives. Upon hearing this, the group of hunters decided to rush over to get their share of the experience as well. Meanwhile, Jin was already fighting monsters and 2 of the strongest mutants attacked at the same time. Our hero only found out about it from the system notification. He only saw 1 tree demon himself. But where's the other one? In addition, Jin could only sense the presence of a single dark aura. Could it be that the system was wrong? No, it can't be. The system is never wrong. Our hero has to be extremely careful until he realizes what's going on. Due to the guy being highly fixated on finding the second tree demon, this one was able to get close enough to him to attack. It's amazing how fast a level 1 mutant can be. One more second and Jin would have died, but not one speed. These demons may surprise our hero. While dodging the previous attack, Jin let the mutant out of his sight for a second, and when he turned around he was gone. As suddenly the guy heard a loud whoosh, as if something was flying at a tremendous speed. As it turns out, in this life tree demons can jump, which gives them the ability to make surprise attacks, and the second monster hasn't shown up yet. So I guess he decided to wait for the right moment and attack from behind. But maybe it's even better now. The genie has a chance to finish off one of the demons, but it's not that easy to do. For some reason, tree demons are much stronger in this life. When suddenly, during the battle, our hero noticed something unusual. On the mutant's neck was some kind of incomprehensible tumor from which emanated an incredibly strong stream of energy. And then, Jin realized everything. That's why the system showed him fighting two monsters. In his past life, the tree demon and entangler were destroyed by an elite military unit. At that time, he didn't realize what they were about. All this time, Jin thought that the entangler must be hiding somewhere. But as it turns out, the answer was right in front of his nose. He was on the tree demon the whole time, fueling the monster with extra energy and giving it new abilities. But apparently the effect lasts for a very short period of time, and before the effect is renewed, the wood demon temporarily retreats. Now that Jin realized what the secret was, defeating the monster would be much easier. You just had to wait for the right moment. If our hero timed it right, the tree demon is about to jump again. And after he realized it, as the monster attacked, this movement became his biggest mistake. When fighting monsters, the most important thing is to understand their principle of attack and defense, and find the vulnerable areas. And if you succeed, then victory will definitely be yours. And since the source of the tree demon's entire strength was the entangler, by finishing him off, Jin would finish off the mutants in one blow. The sensation of killing such creatures was awesome, but more awesome was the sensation of being empowered. Finish the source of the mutant's power. Now it's just a matter of time. Chop that demon into little pieces. Jin would never have thought that a tree demon without the help of an entangler wouldn't even reach the first level. For defeating mutants, our hero received psychic experience points, dry wood armor, and psychic fruit. Although these items are considered a real boon, they will do more harm than good in normal combat. In any case, the only thing that really has any value is the mental fruit. The effect of using this fruit permanently increases strength by 1 point, increases life recovery rate by 20%. For many awakened people, a promotion to major only adds 4 points to their stats. And Jin, after killing only 2 mutants, was already able to get 1 point. And meanwhile, the regular hunters have lost the signal from the monster. This is only possible in one case, if the monster is dead. When suddenly one of them said, "How can this be? There is no one here but us and that guy." That evening, Jin went to the black market to sell the materials he'd gotten. The materials turned out to be of near-perfect quality. For these 4 items obtained from a level 1 mutant, the genie is willing to give 697 credit points. And since our hero was here for the first time, they decided to round up the amount to 700. During the apocalypse, that amount of money could buy over 200 kilos of meat or hire 6 mercenaries. So we're talking about a substantial sum. Here you can not only sell but also buy various goods. In particular, our hero was interested in books with sword skills. Skill books themselves are not uncommon. However, almost all of them are low level, and in the entire Tenfeng zone, there is hardly a book above level D. After a couple minutes, the girl offered the genie 3 skill books to choose from. The first book was a level D skill. Furious Sword Strike. Effect: to defeat a powerful attack consumes a small amount of stamina and mental power. Causes damage that exceeds the forces spent. The second skill was also D level. Fast and Destructive Strike. Effect: consumes some stamina to increase the speed of the strike. The first strike increases the damage. The third skill, not much different from the others, the same useless garbage. Even with the sword god system taken into account, Jin still has to be extremely careful in choosing new skills, because their power is very dependent on the base skill. If you take, for example, Storm of Swords, although its power is incredible, the fact that it activates with a delay and the technique has a large area of effect makes it not versatile at all. If he has to fight breakthrough high-level mutants in the future, once they dodge the Storm of Swords, activate skill recovery, and tear the guy apart. But amongst all these useless skills, Jin decided to choose one. A quick and cutting strike, and we're incredibly interested to see what he'll be like once he's pumped up. The vendor was a little embarrassed by the fact that Jin had brought some really nice items and bought some junk. But it wasn't his business, so he didn't ask any questions. His business was simply to sell and buy. In general, for a place like this, Jin is the perfect customer, bringing in rare, expensive items and taking away the junk you don't need. With his remaining credit points, our hero decided to buy something for Lisa, and I bought him canned meat. I realize it doesn't seem very tasty, but during the apocalypse, staying alive is God's blessing, and getting something like this is a luxury. After putting Lisa to bed, our hero decided to test his new skill. After learning and improving, the swift and chopping blow turned into a Heaven's Rift Beam of Light, SSS-Rank. During use, this skill consumes 4,000 units of psychological energy for a quick strike, increases strength and agility by 600%, but the effect only lasts for 1 second. This blow releases the powerful energy of the sword, resulting in unpredictable consequences. Although dexterity is increased only for 1 second, this skill can compensate very well for the delay in activation. And to know for sure whether the genie is not wrong, it is necessary to try it out. Well, in all the enhancements that this skill gives, the genie was most interested in acceleration. And there's only one proper place in the neighborhood to check it out: the abandoned outskirts of the former megapolis of Manhwa. After the mutants drove the humans out, this place is covered in poison ivy. Standing at the entrance to this neighborhood, Jin said, "It feels as if no matter past is life or current, this place remains unexplored in the slightest." In his past life, our hero by pure chance found here mutants of the 2nd level, which almost reached the maximum speed and agility. And that time, a fair amount of high-level blue equipment fell out of him. In this neighborhood, you have to be very careful. Anything can kill you. While Gina was looking at his surroundings, he was trapped, and at the same time, Zombie was sneaking up on him from behind. The monster turned out to be quite loud, so our hero managed to spot it in time. When Zombie realized he'd been spotted, he decided to attack immediately. In this zone, because of the strong aura, the monsters become stronger. For example, a zombie that is on the 1st level of the last stage is as strong as a level 2 zombie. Plus, due to the high radiation levels, the monsters here have mutated a lot. But for a genie, that's no problem. With his skills, even a level 2 zombie won't be a serious opponent. This time our hero is lucky that he was attacked by such a weak mutant. If it was someone stronger, he would be in big trouble. After thinking for a while, Jin realized that it was incredibly dangerous to travel the streets. He could be trapped there at any moment, but unfortunately, he had no other choice. In his past life, Jin fought the monster here when he was level 2 and all blue equipped, but still almost lost. With his current physical condition, a second's delay would cost Jin his life. A couple minutes later, Jin came to the spot where he had met the rock climber last time. But this time, realizing that the enemy surpasses him in strength several times, our hero decided to prepare a little. The only thing a guy can count on is the surprise effect, and a 1-second boost in speed and strength. To maximize his chances, he wanted to make a trap out of a sewer grate. Before he could do anything, a huge waterworm appeared, of high-level mutants. We need to deal with him as quickly as possible before Cliffhanger shows up. Because the waterworm was very heavy, the fragile asphalt that hadn't been repaired in a long time fell underneath it. It was the perfect opportunity to finish him off. But just as our hero was about to do so, behind him he heard a familiar sound. There was no doubt about it. It's the rock climber. Jin ended up in the worst situation he could possibly be in. You have to fight 2 high-level mutants at the same time. Even at the peak of his powers, our hero didn't want to face the climber. He was too fast and too strong. And in this life, the monster's advantage was simply undeniable. The only way to win is to take advantage of the environment and the climber's vulnerable areas. Using stealth, the genie manages to dodge the monster's attacks for now. Even more complicated is the fact that the rock climber is not alone. As a result of concerted effort, the waterworm managed to seriously injure our hero. Jin had come here hoping to try out a new skill, but from the looks of it, using it now wouldn't be the best decision. But the conditions were perfect for other machinery. The cliffhanger is too fast, sword techniques won't be able to deal with it, and you can't dodge it all the time. So the only skill that can help is Light of Heavenly Destruction. It is fast and designed for single targets. A logical question arises. How can a technique designed to destroy one enemy be able to cope with 2 mutants at once? It's much simpler than it seems. The Light of Heavenly Destruction has a certain range. If at the moment of skill activation, the climber and the waterworm are close enough to each other, this technique will finish them both off. In the current climate, it's an incredible risk the genie will have to take if he wants to survive. Of happiness, this time our hero's plan worked perfectly. He turned 2 high-level mutants into dust with one blow. The effect of the attack was much stronger and more devastating than Jin had originally anticipated. It's all because the moment you activate Light of Heavenly Destruction, the additional skill Sword Chi is superimposed, which increases the attack power at the moment of impact. This whole endeavor was risky and crazy from the start, but the reward was commensurate with the risk. Meanwhile, strong energy fluctuations have been detected at a nearby military base. Such signals were characteristic for the opening of the gate, so the duty officer without a second thought turned on the alarm. After detailed analysis, the military realized that the signal didn't come from the gate, and from someone whose level was at least 3rd. This news was a real shock, because there were no such strong warriors in the entire zone right now. To figure out what really happened, the military sent in a team of specialists, but the experts didn't fully understand what they were dealing with. The techniques of all high-level warriors are known, but no one left such marks. When suddenly one of the experts decided to measure the remaining energy, the device showed that the person who used this skill had expended 4,000 units of psychological energy. To not die after using that much energy, one must be at least at the middle stage of the 3rd level. Incidents involving warriors with such power are kept top secret, and such matters are handled personally by the top military brass to avoid leaks. For defeating a rock climber and a water worm, our hero received a set of first-class equipment, which combines mobility with great explosive power. In his previous life, such a set of equipment cost about 60,000 credit points. Keeping a set of armor like this would make sense if there was a small need for money. Without thinking long, Jean decided to put the outfit up for sale. From the time of publication, not even a second after the first person wrote in. There's even more demand for this armor than Jin anticipated, but for the buyer, the price was too high. So the man offered to give the genie 30,000 credit points, and the rest of the money to do whatever he wanted. Overall, the guy was fine with it, but with one condition: the skills had to be sword-related. The man who wanted to buy a set of armor from Jin was a very powerful man, with his personal gang. So when Jin agreed to the deal, the man ordered his men to find every possible sword-related skill. In a few hours, his men found every possible ammunition that increased dexterity and strength, and only a few skill books. But frankly, it was all real junk that our hero would not have been satisfied with. Realizing the value of the deal, the man ordered his men to keep looking, and in the meantime, he wired our hero half of the agreed amount. To be honest, selling top-notch armor was something Jean didn't want to do, but he was only doing it for Lisa and his mom. Hours later, the buyer asked to wait until tomorrow to collect the full amount needed, and Jean graciously agreed. The next day, early in the morning, our hero went to the real estate agency to find a nice apartment for your family. At first, the realtor did not take our hero seriously. He was dressed in old and dirty clothes, and you could not tell from his appearance that he had money. The woman told us about the best apartments they could provide, but politely recommended our hero to pay attention to cheaper accommodation, to which he replied with a smile on his face. "Thank you for such concern, but I want to take the most expensive apartment for 40,000. The realtor didn't believe Jean until the last minute, but still decided to try to debit his account, and to the genie's surprise, the payment did not go through, due to lack of funds. To which the woman said, "Listen, get out of here before I call security, you beggar." So Jean decided to write to the buyer to find out where the money was. To which he received the following reply: "I apologize for the delay. I was only able to collect 39,375 credit points, some fruit, and some equipment. Can we make a deal?" Since the money was urgently needed, Jin agreed, and then there was a voice notification from the bank. "You have been credited 39,375 credit points." Right after that, the expression on the woman's face changed drastically to a friendly one. After a few hours of filling out paperwork, Jean and his family became owners of one of the best apartments in the area. Lisa still couldn't believe what was happening. Now she wouldn't have to go through the trash to find food. For this purchase, our hero spent almost everything he got after killing the climber. Now he needs to replenish his supplies as soon as possible. Most of the high-level mutants have been wiped out by the army, and those that remain are barely enough even for the awakened low equations. And now, the only thing left to him is Corpse Academy, the only open area outside the safe zone where you can get psychic fruit. Plus, there are still level 2 mutants out there, and the rewards depend on how you prove yourself. No one has gotten the special reward yet, so it's still available. With SSS level skills, Jin will definitely be able to get them. Corpse Academy is an ordinary training ground, with no paranormal phenomena or special events. The enemies here are the usual mutants, zombies, and a few humans. Takes place a week after the apocalypse has begun. People have turned into zombies and occupied the former academy. People need to complete basic tasks to leave the scene and get the reward. This time, players need to stay within the walls of the academy for 12 hours and survive. And as a reward, they will receive 1 piece of white equipment and 4 points of mental experience. But besides the main task, there were some additional ones. You had to kill 2 bosses of level D and C, as well as clear the academy of all zombies. Among today's contestants, there's a guy named Harry who's done this challenge once before, and he's offered himself as team captain, but a lot of people were against it. It was a difficult ordeal, so they wanted to choose someone with some combat experience to be captain. And Harry said, "Idiots, I wanted to settle this the right way. This place is classified as medium to high difficulty. 1 wrong decision and you become zombie fodder, got it?" In the end, the majority agreed to appoint Harry as team leader, and only Jin didn't say a word. Walking up to our hero to get his support, the guy said, "Hey you, a kid with that level decided to come here? Didn't anyone warn you that this is a level 2 trial? You're going to die here instantly. I can protect you," Harry added snidely. But in response, Jin only silently turned around, pulling on a crazy smile. Harry thought he was crazy, so he decided not to touch him. But he warned him that if he interfered with the team, he would kill him. Harry wanted to be team captain so badly for the sole reason that captain gets the most rewards, but there were drawbacks. If several members of the crew died, the captain was fined. So the guy made a rule: it's strictly forbidden to engage in combat alone. Last time, Harry and himself decided to do so, and ended up meeting 2 bosses at the same time. Most of the team was killed, and Harry was only able to survive thanks to 2 second-level awakened who fought to the last man. Harry's chatter, much less his rules, didn't interest Jin at all. He'd learned in his previous life that you can only rely on yourself, because the team uses you as an expendable commodity any chance they get. In addition, our hero's power level is not inferior to level 2 awakened, even considering that they have pumped equipment. With those SSS level stats and skills, he can definitely become the best player in the Corpse Academy and take the best prize for himself. With not much time left before the battle began, Harry and his team decided to choose a mission to kill a female corpse. This is the 2nd-level corpse arena boss. It's the only monster they could possibly handle. While the other guys were working out a plan, Jin didn't hesitate long enough to rush forward to finish off the boss and take everything for himself. No one was going to stop him. They thought he was just an idiot who didn't care about his own life. These idiots just haven't realized yet that Jin will be the one to take the entire award for himself, leaving them with nothing. As suddenly, in one of the abandoned buildings of the academy, the guy met 2 girls who asked for help. But the genie was in no hurry to get close to them, and he did the right thing. These girls turned out to be infected. In his past life, his team members thought they were NPCs who needed to be rescued in order to receive instructions, and as a result, they were eaten alive by them. The highest reward in Corpse Academy can be obtained for killing a boss named Butcher, but you have to find him first. Meanwhile, Harry and his team were trying to sneak into the boss's lair, avoiding encounters with regular zombies. The thing is that this location works on the principle: the more monsters you kill in the beginning, the more you will be attacked in the end. Their plan was quite simple: kill the corpse of a woman and hide until the end of the trial. Even though in the Corpse Academy this boss was the weakest, it can't be considered non-threatening. As soon as the team got within 100 meters of her, she spotted them. Harry had a very strong defense skill, so he took the first blow on himself. From his words, he was completely useless in the attack, so he delegated the task to the rest of the group. I think it's worth mentioning that many of them had quite impressive strength. Their combined attack even managed to slightly wound the corpse of a woman. Everything seems to be going according to plan. It is, but Harry's plan. It's not the first time the guy's been to Corpse Academy, and he knew some of the specifics that he didn't tell us. For example, that the corpse of a woman chooses who to attack based on the damage she takes, which is why Harry didn't attack her himself, but let his team do it. In the end, the boss killed the strongest damager on their team just by ripping his head off. Naturally, Harry pretended he didn't understand and even tried to stop her. Meanwhile, Jin has arrived at the place where the butcher lives. What was our hero's surprise when he found out that the mission to kill the butcher had already been chosen by someone? The whole time the genie was looking for the butcher, this boss was going in the opposite direction. A few minutes later, the butcher came to the aid of the woman's corpse. No one was expecting him to show up, so he could kill 2 people with 1 punch. Harry secretly took another mission. He'd planned it all from the beginning. All this guy did because he's a defense-type awakened and never got good equipment for clearing dungeons, because he couldn't do much damage. But if his entire team dies and the bosses are low on HP, he can finish them off, and take all the bounty for yourself. And to make sure the team fought hard, Harry shouted, It was that stupid idiot who took this mission. If we want to survive, we have to win. It's fair to say that Harry did try his best to protect his team. But he wasn't doing it so they could survive. He was doing it so he could do as much damage as possible. Well, the boys were too stupid to realize everything, so they trusted Harry to the end. But, Jin, as soon as he found out the Butcher's mission was taken, he knew what was what. Interfere in their fight, Jin wasn't going to. Then he would reveal his power to strangers, which he sincerely didn't want to do. However, this is not a trouble. Our hero knew that there are 2 hidden bosses in the Corpse Academy. Both of these mutants were level, Butcher. So even if Harry can kill the corpse of the woman and the Butcher, Jin's score would still be higher, and the better reward would be his. Besides, Jin has fought them before in his past life, and knows how to defeat them. For starters, our hero pissed off the mutants to attack, and then Gin jumped off the roof right into the square where Harry and his team were fighting. By then, the team was gone, with only 3 people left. Our hero really didn't want to reveal his power to anyone, but in this situation, it's unlikely. Gene, on the other hand, realized that if he wanted the best equipment, it's not enough to kill 2 monsters. You have to kill all the bosses in this dungeon. That's why our hero brought these mutants straight to Harry. The plan was, then the genie would finish them off and take it all for himself. Realizing what was happening, Harry shouted, "Bastard! What have you done? We're all going to die here!" "You're wrong. I just did the same thing you did to the other guys. And you're the only one who's going to die here," Jin replied, smiling. "Now that bastard's whole plan is ruined." That's what happens when you knowingly sacrifice other people's lives for your own gain. Realizing there was no way to win, Harry tearfully decided to hide and wait for the mission to end. And with him, the rest of the kids decided to run away. Nobody wants to die, especially when there's no chance of winning. As a friend, one of the guys yelled, "Listen, you're level 0. If they kill you, they won't stop there. If you want to die, go ahead, but leave us out of it." The guy personally wanted to kill Gene to get rid of his problems. But here's the surprise. Our hero just dodged his attack. And in return, our hero did nothing. He realized the guy was pissed that his best friend had just been killed by a butcher. Turning to the rest of the guys, Gene added, "I'll tell you what, I didn't accept this assignment." And that's when the boys realized it was all Harry's doing. In his defense, the guy couldn't think of anything better to do than to continue to pin all the blame on Gene. Figuring out who's to blame now isn't the best idea with 4 high-level mutants on their tail. Then one of the guys came up with a plan. Mutants below level 3 can't destroy buildings, except for a woman's corpse. All the other bosses are too big to get in. The guy suggested splitting into 2 groups, one of which would block mutant attacks from a distance. And the second group will defend the entrance to keep out the female corpse and the zombies that will soon appear. To be honest, the plan was actually quite good. The guys with long-range attacks have taken up firing lines on the top floors so that the monsters have a harder time getting to them. However, given their power level, there is little chance of them holding off 3 bosses at once, but they decided to try anyway. After all, doing nothing is the road to death. As expected, it didn't stop the bosses for a second. Even more, it didn't even slow them down. Their skill level was too low, and even combination attacks were useless. And meanwhile, the guys who were defending the entrance began to retreat. The zombies were much larger than they had originally thought. Harry shouted in fear, "Fuck! We're all going to die!" "We won't die. I might save you if you confess everything," Jin replied snidely. "If you want to survive, jump after me," added our hero. And then, without any explanation, jumped right off the top floor. Of course the guys wouldn't listen, because they thought he was useless garbage. But when they saw Gina building up the energy to attack, they realized they were wrong. Each of them could feel how strong his aura was. And then one of the guys shouted, "We're no longer tenants anyway. We should at least try." After which, he and the rest of the guys jumped after the genie. But Harry was the only one who had doubts. He was afraid of heights. And since he had defensive techniques, he thought he could stand up to a horde of zombies. Meanwhile, our hero was ready to attack. But seeing that Harry was still there, he decided to hold off. But there wasn't much time, so after waiting a bit longer, Jin activated the Storm of Swords. He realized that Harry had defensive techniques, so it was entirely possible he could survive this attack. With just one technique, our hero killed all the zombies and bosses that were on the roof. The explosion was so powerful that the J-Zone barrier barely held. After seeing what Jin was capable of, the guys realized he wasn't what he seemed. When it was over, the genie came down to the guys and asked if everything was okay. While everyone was standing there in shock, the guy who wanted to kill Jin came forward and said, "Master, I'm sorry. I wanted to kill you. I apologize for that." The other guys apologized for their behavior too, and thanked Gene for saving them from the mutants. Before leaving, our hero asked the boys to find all the remaining zombies and kill them. In a past life, He had heard a rumor that blue equipment could be obtained from the remains of a woman's corpse. But the problem is that the skyscraper where she was last seen has turned into ruins, and finding her remains won't be easy. Just then, the Sword God system came to the rescue, illuminating a rare artifact. This time, the trumpet woman, our hero, got a blue outfit, the Skull of Indignation. Effects: psychological control, psychological research. Must be placed on the forehead for use. This skull is perfect for the psychological system. The main reason why the psychological system has always been underestimated. It can't do the same damage as other awakened ones. But with this artifact, everything will change. The dawn of the psychological system is just around the corner. Jin couldn't wait to try that skull on himself. The merging process was very painful and torturous. It felt like rats were eating my brain from the inside out. But this is only a temporary pain. By enduring it, the Jun will gain incredible strength. After the merge, our hero got 2 new ones: psychological control and psychological research. Thanks to mental control, the guy can literally manipulate various objects with his mind, by making them move or collapse. Now imagine if instead of this rock, it was someone's head. But this skill can not only destroy objects, but also reassemble them. Perhaps, at the moment, this is the most versatile and useful skill in Jin's arsenal. It's scary to imagine what he'll be capable of when he pumps up that skill. With the psychological control more or less understood, it's time to check out the psychological study. This skill required a great deal of spiritual energy and concentration to use. However, thanks to him, Jin could see what was happening around beyond his gaze, with accurate information about direction and distance. But since the skill was not yet developed enough, the maximum distance Jin could use, it was 28 meters. But even so, that's a pretty good result, which opens up a lot of possibilities in battle. When suddenly our hero received a notification that all Corpse Academy missions are complete, and the exits are open, and rewards will be accrued after the exit. Jin had no doubt in his mind that he would receive the highest honor possible. As a result of the test, our hero received 1 unit of blue gear, 6 units of white gear, 3 free characterization points, and a level B skill book. Plus, the experience I gained was enough to raise my personal level. A set of white gear our hero was going to sell. The question was what to do with the blue gear. To settle the matter, Jin opened the inventory to see what had fallen out. They were thunderboots, which increased agility, speed, and even jump strength. But that's not all. There is a passive skill that puts the opponent into a state of paralysis when kicked. In addition, these boots have a large stride skill that increases dexterity by 10 points for 2 seconds, which essentially equates our hero to an awakened with a talent for dexterity. So he kept these boots for himself. Right after the Corpse Academy, our hero went to the center of the Skywind mission to take a mission to level up. In this world, you need to confirm your level on special missions. And since our hero was level 0, it would make sense that he would want to take missions to level 1. But he swung straight to level 2. Upon hearing this, the girl at the registration desk asked him several times if he was sure. Jin replied, "Yes, I want to take all 4 missions at once." But the girl said no. The thing is, taking missions above your level is strictly forbidden. And besides, taking several missions at once to level up is not recommended, since the failure of such a mission is severely penalized. If our hero fails 1 mission, half of his main characteristic points will be deducted. But if he fails all missions, he will become useless or even die. The girl didn't want to waste her time on our hero. However, she was obliged to test him on the ball of power. As soon as you couldn't touch it, a bright blue light filled the whole place, and the device showed that Jin was in the last stage of level 1, which means by law he has every right to take a mission for a 2nd level promotion. The guy soberly assessed his strength and realized that the risk is too high, but the reward is clearly worth it. A voice suddenly sounded from behind. "Oh, who I see is Jin, the SS level talent. It's so late and you're still here. Are you trying to raise your worthless level? No matter how hard you try, your mental system won't help you anyway," the guy added. These men turned out to be a captain of the center's research team named Simon. But he didn't come here to tease Jin. He came here to gather his squad for a new mission. A few hours ago, there were traces of a level 3 battle at the Corpse Academy. And since this is an emergency, with a high level of top brass ordered Simon and his men to investigate, the 2 level-up missions were in Dead Man's Asylum, so Jin decided to combine them. But before going into battle, our hero decided to reconnoiter the situation around him. There was a group of armed men on the grounds of the orphanage, led by a 3rd-level awakened one. This man's face was familiar to our hero, but he could not remember who it was. "Almost got you." This man really is incredibly strong once he was able to sense the psychological study. If he catches Jin, his mission will fail. These people have been causing a lot of trouble, so we need to act fast. Meanwhile, this team has already encountered several mutants, a sleep-dead man, and a bloody bear. Judging by the way these guys acted, they are true professionals. By banding together in small groups, they forced the monsters to split up. Suddenly, there was a loud howl in the area, which created a lot of pressure. This is one of the basic skills, the boss of this territory, the dead tiger. The whole time, the team captain stayed behind the others and didn't interfere in the fight, but he decided to go one-on-one with the boss. Half an hour ago, the commander of the 3rd District, his personal squad of soldiers came to the abandoned zoo. They, like Jin, came here to deal with the dead tiger, but not to level up. Commander wanted a rare blue outfit for his newly awakened son. His son used to be in a special program as a special talent. But after Jin came along, the funding for that program stopped. That's the reason the man didn't have to come here. For him, as a level 3 awakened one, fighting a dead Turg should not be something impossible. And this was a huge problem for the genie. In order to level up, he personally has to kill this mutant. Otherwise, the mission will be a failure. And it would be nice to get the blue gear. To try to stop him is foolish. In an equal battle against a level 3 awakened and his team, our hero doesn't stand a chance. The only way to successfully complete the mission is to intervene at the last moment and finish the boss. Our hero has only one chance at such an attack. If he misses, it's all over. And given how strong the captain is, it's hard to find the perfect moment. Watching the fight, Jin realized that the man possessed a warrior system of strength and agility, just the perfect warrior. And his lightning techniques are simply astounding in their power. But don't underestimate the mutant, he's almost level 3 after all. Their fight was so fast that it was almost impossible to follow the events. The initiative literally went from one to the other every second. It's safe to say they're equal opponents, but the captain, he had one trump hidden. The S-ranked technique Fierce Fire Strike. Thanks to this science, a man can incinerate anything within 100 meters, and it had a special way of working on mutants. Once the flame touched a mutant's body, it did not go out until the monster's life energy went out. A normal mutant didn't stand a chance of surviving this. So the team considered the mission accomplished and began to retreat. But Jin wasn't sure it was over. He felt that the tiger's aura was almost gone, which meant it was time to act. But the other guys didn't have the same spiritual powers as our hero, so they really thought they had won until the tiger recovered. The only problem was that the recovering tiger had gotten even stronger. But we couldn't wait any longer. In addition, now is the perfect opportunity to finish off all the strongest monsters in the area at once. And how many corpses after the battle in the academy? Storm of Swords is still unavailable. G decided to activate Crack of Heavenly Light. Perhaps it is from the skill does not have such a large range. But here is the damage is definitely not worse. It all happened so fast that none of the crew had time to realize what had happened. In the moment, the captain felt an incredible surge of energy that only awakened 3rd-level, high-level awakened ones are capable of. After making sure everything was out, Jin immediately left the orphanage grounds to stay out of trouble. The commander was incredibly angry that someone had stolen his loot right out from under his nose. But at the same moment he realized he couldn't stand up to him. And besides, he had to report to Commander Xiao. After completing the first of 4 missions to level up, Jin received the blue-quality Tiger Indignation gloves. In addition to the basic improvements, strength, speed, and agility, these gloves also had the Roar of the Tiger skill. This skill gathers resentment and will into a fist, damaging the target's mental energy, causing a brief stun and a chance to cause fear. Recovery time is 1 day. I can see why that man wanted them so badly. Meanwhile, Simon, after a night of exploring, was trying to figure out what was what. At the Academy of the Dead, they found no trace of them, just like last time in the Wild Forest. But the surprises didn't end there. While they were gone, radar picked up 2 more similar bursts. This news made the man mad. He was literally going crazy at the thought of this stranger. Despite the night raid, Simon has ordered everyone back together. He must find out the cause of these energy surges at all costs, or else Commander Xiao will be very displeased. At the entrance, Simon met a very angry man in commander's garb who demanded to see Xiao. What a surprise. It's the captain from the mutant asylum. Seeing that the man was not in the mood, Simon wondered what had made him so angry. I went to the orphanage in the morning to get equipment for my son. But as soon as I was almost there, some level 3 awakened one caught the loot from under my nose. Now, Simon's getting something. Okay, one of the signals they picked up in that place was Derek's, which is why Derek wanted to meet with Xiao to talk about the incident. But Simon tried to assure the man that it was some kind of mistake. After all, there was only one person in their region who possessed the 3rd level, and that was Commander Xiao. Realizing there was no way to solve the problem, Derek decided to find Xiao in person. Simon realized that if Captain Derek was telling the truth, things were much more serious than he thought. After which, Simon immediately called the commander and told him what he'd learned from Derek. One or even several third-level awakened ones hiding in the zone is a serious danger. Investigate. Just do it right this time, Xiao said. Jean has 2 more missions left, Wind Eagle and Survival. After that he can level up. To effectively fight such a mutant, Jean needs a special piece of equipment, Eagle Wings. Although they are rare, they are essentially a low-level item. If someone is lucky enough to get them, they'll sell them right away. But, unfortunately, there was no offer to buy now, so Jean left the order. Literally right away, there was a man who was willing to fulfill this order for a certain amount. This man didn't seem particularly trustworthy to the genie. But time was short. So he offered a price of 800 credit points, the amount of money a low-level awakened man makes in over a year. The guy immediately realized he was dealing with a serious person, so he raised the price to 1,000 points. Frankly speaking, such a sum was not a problem for our hero. He was just amused by how clumsily the guy tried to inflate the price. And that's when Jean decided to have a little fun, by sending a voicemail. You're only level 1. What are you doing? Fighting a wind eagle? You must have picked it up in the wild somewhere, right? You don't even know the market price. I'm in a hurry, but I'm not in such a hurry. If there's no deal, you can keep it. Realizing that he might be left with nothing, the stranger apologized and agreed to our hero's proposal. Jean wasn't greedy. He just didn't like it when people tried to cheat. But our hero didn't stop there. He decided to teach this guy a lesson to the max. That's why he said that after they tried to cheat him, he would only give half the price. The guy knew he couldn't sell the wing. Nobody wanted it. So he agreed to 400 points. Now all that's left is the dungeons, an educational center for young people. People who have passed it said it was different from other dungeons. Not even a level 3 warrior could pass this test. Because the test itself is not a combat test, it's a mental test. This dungeon requires not only high physical data, but also a very high level of mental strength, which was just perfect for our hero. With his main talent, Jin was going to take this opportunity to test how strong he was. Right after connecting to the dungeon, the color of the sky changed. Jin had no idea why this was so, but he knew it was no good. There were other people here besides him, who, immediately after connecting to the dungeon, succumbed to the intense pressure of the local aura. But there was one middle-aged man named Darnell who could resist this pressure, since he was at the highest stage of the first level, and his specialty was willpower. Just like the other guys, it's not random. The point is that people with this kind of talent are practically useless in real combat. That's why they go on missions where spiritual energy decides everything. Having gotten to know each other, Darnell offered himself as captain. He said he's been down dungeons like this before and knows how they work. We've seen this somewhere before, haven't we? Everyone was in agreement for the gift not to be captain, and only Jean said nothing. When asked why he was silent, our hero said, I don't mind being captain, I'm just in a hurry, let's get started. Mission activated. Find the ghost lurking in the middle school and seal it. Mission 1, locate the ghost. Task 2, don't believe the lies. Task 3, if I seal the talisman's accounts with a non-parasitic ghost, the task will be considered failed, and instant elimination will occur. The boss of this dungeon is called a ghost, but it's really just the spirit of a man tainted with psychic energy before his death. It is essentially a type of attribute called will. And although it is technically an ordinary human soul, its opposite side is incredibly powerful. This one is so capable of not only protecting himself from the physical level, but also controlling the will of others. When suddenly Darnell said, according to the first clue, we need to go around the building and look for evidence. If you encounter him, don't rush into battle, run and call for help. I have an idea how to defeat him. And to make the search for clues go faster, they decided to split into 3 groups. Darnell would go with a girl called Alice, Han and Bunty would go alone, and Jin would go by himself. After which, our hero went to the archives to find documents that could help. There was practically nothing but newspaper clippings and torn paper. But then he came across a piece of paper that said a teacher named Tao was suspected of abusing a student who had committed suicide. While our hero was trying to figure out what it could mean, someone stealthily approached him, when all of a sudden this ghost leaped towards Jin with a loud scream. And then she just disappeared. A female ghost? I see. It must be the same student, Jin said thoughtfully. And by then, the rest of the team had found various clues. Putting all the evidence together, Darnell said, a student named Fan was humiliated by her teacher. Her family demanded compensation, but to no avail. After that, she committed suicide, turned into a ghost, and started a fire to take revenge. Later, the priest came and sealed it, but the talisman has stopped working. Their task is to find it and seal it again. Darnell suggested that the talisman might be in the room where the dorm fire occurred, room 200. Din. Something inside Jin was telling him that something was wrong. After about a couple minutes of searching, Alice found the very same talisman. Where they found the talisman, there was a silhouette of a man on the wall. Something was wrong here. After a moment's thought, Jean said, "Alice, didn't the evidence you found mention that a teacher who burned to death lived in this room?" "No, there was nothing like that," the girl replied fearfully. There was a loud scream in the hallway. "Help! She's chasing us." It was Khan and Banty who were being chased by Phantom Fan. Caught in a Banty, the ghost went right into his mouth, by transferring all his evil energy into the poor kid's body. After getting a physical body, Fang attacked Han. Seeing this, Darnell ordered the genie and Alice to get ready for the sealing. While he tries to save Han Yibanti, Jin still had a feeling that something was wrong, however. In this situation, there was no way to procrastinate. We need to catch the moment when a man can separate the ghost from the boys and seal it. Darnell managed to capture the ghost. However, separating it from the Banty, he couldn't not had the strength.
Jean, seal it now! I won't be able to hold him back any longer! The man shouted with all his might.
"Don't worry, I'll do it right." "Master Tao," added Jin, and placed the sealing talisman on the Darnell's shoulder. "Kid, what did you do? We're all going to die," shouted the man angrily. "Look, there's no point in resisting anymore. When I offered the seal to you, the Banty stopped moving. Master Ta, you impersonated the awakened Darnell, and then used your power to turn into a fake ghost. You wanted to test us. You tried to attack me first, but you realized it wouldn't work, so you switched to the weaker ones. Then you pretended to fight a ghost and talked over and over about sealing the body, to use the chaos to kill us all." Alice could not believe that all this time she had blindly trusted the ghost. Our hero's arguments were very valid. Now that Tao's power is sealed, it's time to recognize his true form. A ghost without his powers is nothing more than an evil spirit trying to scare someone. By injecting a small part of his spiritual energy into an empty shell, our hero made the monster's true appearance manifest. It was worth admitting that Tao had acted as stealthily as possible. If it wasn't for the genie's inner sense, they would have all died a long time ago. "I can feel him dying," the ghost said. "How did you know? Do you really know about the hidden mission of this dungeon?" Tao mumbled with all his might. "Hidden mission? What are you talking about?" "So you don't know? The reason no one has ever gotten bouncers for this dungeon is because everyone is an idiot. The secret mission is to make me dissipate myself. How about you tell me how you figured it out, and I'll scatter on my own," said the ghost. Our hero agreed, but on one condition. "Tao needs to tell us why he needs the information about how Jin declassified him. Well, I can awaken once. When the dungeon reboots, the previous memories are retained," Tao added, barely containing his laughter. "If our hero tells us how he was able to declassify him, next time Tao will change his plan." Desire, getting the highest score for this dungeon, was incredibly high. After thinking for a bit, Jean said, "It's very simple, first of all. The second mission clue said, 'Don't trust lies,' and the female ghost never said anything. Second, since you didn't speak in group chat, that means you can't use the system. In addition, the clues said that fans supposedly committed suicide. It was unclear. But to the teacher, it's obvious. And lastly, sealing talismans. It should be in her graveyard, not in the teacher's dormitory. Based on all those factors, it wasn't hard to guess it was you. And besides, nowhere did it say what was up with the fan. And then I remembered a news story about a girl who ended up in a psychiatric hospital because she was molested by a teacher," Jenny added. "Well, no. A female ghost can't talk unless it's sealed. I didn't send the message because I was looking for clues, and besides, the appearance of the female ghost and Fan's suicide is a perfect coincidence." After listening to Jin, Tao replied, "Did you really think I would tell you everything just like that? If you want to know everything, disappear now, and I will tell you a few seconds before you disappear. Agreed?" said our hero, smugly. To the ghost, he had nothing to lose, so he went along with it. As soon as Tao started disappearing, he asked Jin to tell him everything. "Don't rush me, the most important thing is this," Jin whispered slowly.
Boy, hurry up, we have a deal!
"Yes, I remember. The main thing is that I just guessed." With a smile on his face, our hero added,
"That's it, dungeon's done, on the high score!"
And please note, in doing so, the genie didn't give Tao the slightest clue as to how to cheat people next time. When it was over, Elise asked our hero, did he really decide to take such a risk without any proof? But in fact, there was one thing that made Jin immediately guess. Tao had said that the talisman was in room 201, even though there were no clues about it. Hearing all this made Alice uncomfortable. She was frightened by how smart Jean was. For passing the dungeon on the highest score, our hero received 4 points of willpower and white gear, and an artifact called the Beads of Evil. It increases the speed of psychic recovery by 20%, as well as the resistance to psychic attacks by 20%, and can compensate for lethal damage when faced with a psychic attack. After compensating, the artifact disappears. The same evening, our hero decided to return to the base of the Celestial Wind, where he took missions to level up. The girl recognized Jean immediately, so she was surprised that he came only 2 days later. It usually takes about a couple months to level up. At first, the girl thought that Jin had made a mistake, but upon checking him, she saw that he had completed all 4 missions. From surprise, the girl froze like a statue, but Jin asked her to hurry up. She was still shocked, and yet she registered Jin as a level 2 warrior. It took our hero only a week to reach level 2. With the Sword God system, you can level up much faster than in your previous life. Immediately after the registration, the girl decided to report the incident to the top management. Not counting the bonuses from the equipment, the current characteristics of our hero were quite high, as for the second level. But if he wants to use the B-level sword skill he brought last time, he's still 23 points short. It can be done quickly thanks to the psychic fruit. But considering its effectiveness is getting less and less each time. In total, the genie needs 35 of them, each of which costs 6,000. Total, he needs 210,000. This amount of credits will be difficult to achieve, especially since all the high-ranked dungeons have already been passed. Only the Factory of Death remains. When suddenly, the sky above the city suddenly turned red. It could only mean one thing: zombie attack. In a past life, the global zombie outbreak happened a year later. But before that, there were other waves that humanity was able to repel. But by our hero's estimation, it was only supposed to happen next week. Realizing what's going on, our hero decided to immediately notify Commander Xiao so that he can take precautions as soon as possible. Considering that our hero knows everything that will happen in the near future, he has the opportunity to prevent a disaster. Seeing the message from our hero, Commander Xiao fell into a stupor. Of course, he didn't believe a word our hero said, thinking he was just trying to get attention. Especially since the last time there were new zombies was over 40 years ago, and they're all trapped in abandoned cities. Plus, Xiao has other problems right now. He's still looking for a level 3 lurking hero. A little later that night, Xiao called a meeting. He demanded that Simon get some results in his search for the mystery hero. After looking at all the places where there were strong bursts of energy and interviewing the mission members, the only suspect was the genie. When the commander heard that, he couldn't believe his ears. Simon himself had his doubts, but after a thorough investigation, he realized what was up. The guy found out that Jin was currently the only one selling most of the high-ranked materials, and the timing of the sale coincides perfectly with the timing of the energy flashes. In addition, during the investigation, Simon learned that our hero recently bought a luxury apartment, which ordinary people cannot afford. But even with all these facts, Xiao still couldn't believe it. After all, our hero only possessed a mental talent. And then the captain of military intelligence said, "Siava, think about it. He's officially only been considered awakened for a week. Even with the highest talent, it's impossible to level up that fast. Not even the greatest generals in history could do that." That was why the scout thought that Jin was just a front in someone else's hands. But this theory, Xiao thought it was quite possible. Considering how rare talents were among SS rankers, they could secretly raise Jin for themselves as an experiment. In that case, there's no reason to worry. All you have to do is find that 3-tiered hero. When suddenly Simon shouted, "No way! I just got a message that Jin has passed all 4 of the second-level tasks." This news completely destroys the scout's theory that our hero is being supervised by someone. And again, Xiao didn't know what to think. He couldn't believe that Jin was the one they were looking for. Still too few facts. After much thought, Xiao ordered Simon to follow our hero's house. And just in case, he decided to send some combat teams to keep an eye on abandoned cities to prevent a possible wave of zombies. The Commodore needs time to figure this out. But before Simon left, the commander asked him to get a set of blue gear to settle things with Derek. Back to Jean. After waiting for Storm of Swords to fully recover, he went to the Death Factory. Is a military-type dungeon with randomized quests. The dungeon consists of 7 waves of mutants. Participants are rewarded for surviving each wave. There are 15 soldiers in the test. Also, after each wave, a vote is taken on whether the mission should continue. If more than 70% agree to stop, the mission stops. Judging by the equipment of some of the people who joined, they were from the same faction, but that wasn't all. They were joined by the third-level heroine Alice. Just looking at her made Jin feel like she was going to be trouble. As suddenly one of the guys said, "My name is Steel. I'm a level 2 awakened. As you know, this dungeon requires challenging work. So I would like to offer my humble candidacy as your captain." But before the boy could say a word, Alice shattered several of his ribs with a single blow. Poor kid. Didn't even have time to react. Although Steel was a pity, but our hero now knows what the third level can do. Alice was incredibly fast. Once again, our hero's gut didn't fail him. Because of her status, she was overly arrogant and thought everyone was scum. Unfortunately, she has always gotten away with this behavior. Firstly, because she was a high-level hero, and secondly, because she had her own personal goon squad. It was not a good idea to mess with them. Then a guy named Tan said, "Gan, just as I thought, we've stumbled upon a farming group. I figured it out myself. You better figure out what we're gonna do with this fool." Pharma groups use the awakened as cannon fodder. While the awakened hostages fight on the front lines, they reap the benefits of the dungeon. If awakened and mutants view each other as a target, then pharma groups view humans as bait to be used. Realizing what was going to happen next, the Tan asked for Steel to be released and the vote to begin. But Alice just laughed and crushed the poor guy's head. Wiping the drops of blood from her cheek, the girl said, "Okay, we are a group of blood wolves. I am their captain. Alice, during this mission I will be the commander. If you survive the 6th wave and give everything to us, I will keep you alive." From these words, a smile appeared on the face of our hero. He knew perfectly well that as soon as she gets what she wants, she will kill them all at once. It's a shame that the heavenly beam of light is still recharging. The only thing he could use right now was Storm of Swords, but Jin didn't know how strong Alice was, so it wasn't worth the risk. There were only a few minutes left before the first wave started, so the girl ordered everyone to say their name and ability one at a time. Tan awakened 2nd level specialization Mid-East combat. Gang of Voices dice specialization on ranged attacks. All the other guys also specialized in different types of attacks. When it was our hero's turn, he whispered shyly, "Jin, level 2, talent, spiritual power, specializing in ranged attacks." Alice found it amusing that a person with such talent had come to this dungeon. After a couple minutes, the mission began. There were only 100 level 1 and 2 zombies in the first wave, and naturally the first to fight were the regular awakened, while Alice and her blood wolves stood by. Luckily, Tan and Gan had a lot of combat experience, so at first, Jin might not reach his full potential. The guys who specialize in long-range attacks have taken up positions at altitude to attack effectively without hitting anyone. The most important thing is to make it through the first wave, after which there will be voting. The guys believed they could get out of here alive, even with Alice. In order not to be completely useless, our hero also pretended to attack, but he did it with extreme caution, so that no one would realize his true power. And he was very good at it. Awaken thought him utterly useless, and Alice was surprised at his recklessness. Gene was doing everything he could to keep that bitch from figuring him out before his time. 10 minutes later, the first wave was over, and of course, Alice wouldn't let anyone vote, with death threats. And in the end, the boys made it all the way to the 4th wave, but they were already running out of strength. Tan and Gon knew that if Alice didn't help them, the next wave would be their last. Saw the awakened began to panic. The girl came down to them. She said with a heavy sigh, "It's only the 3rd wave and you're already dead. If you think I'm going to help you, you're wrong. We'll only help you in the 7th wave." "Oh, sweetie, so you're still alive?" "Not even a scratch." When she saw Jean, Alice added, "Just lucky." Awkwardly, our hero replied. The rest of the awakened thought the genie was a loser and a ballast that only got in the way. And only Tan guessed that Jin had some secret, because he had somehow managed to reach the 2nd level. Here we go, the 4th wave. This time the awakened will have to fight 400 zombies, including 1 mutant at the 2nd level peak, 2 mutants at the 2nd level peak, and 6 monsters at the 1st level peak. Teen decided to take on the strongest mutant since he had defense skills, but the mutant at the peak of the 2nd level was much stronger than the guy thought. Seeing that he was in trouble, the archer decided to unleash a barrage of arrows on the monster, and attracted the attention of the other monsters. Not 5 minutes into the 4th wave first, our heroes lost their first team member. The rest of the guys fought as hard as they could. At one point, they even thought they could withstand the wave, but in reality, things weren't as good as they thought. Even after they died, the monsters poured acid on the heroes. With each passing second, the monsters were getting bigger and bigger. Teen and Gan were seriously injured, and most of the squad was already dead. Watching everything, Jin realized that they wouldn't last until the 6th wave. It was too early to reveal his trump cards, but he couldn't stand by and watch the other guys die. Even though he wasn't fighting at full strength, he was doing his best to save the lives of the others. Using a storm of swords was too reckless right now, so Jin decided to activate telekinesis. It is not as strong and destructive, however, to kill a few regular zombies is enough. In just a few seconds, our hero has put down over a dozen level 1 zombies. From what he saw, the guy was shocked. After all, he thought our hero was useless. After Jin began to actively fight, things were much better on the battlefield. Of course, Alice couldn't help but notice. As she watched our hero, she saw that his boots were part of his blue gear. Now, it makes no sense for her to spare our hero. Before, she wanted to spare him, but now, she wants to take his shoes to sell them for a profit. Half an hour later, the boys still managed to beat back the 4th wave. They had already lost 1 melee fighter and 1 ranged attacker, and Teng Yigang was seriously injured. In addition, during the battle, the guys noticed that Jin is very different from the awakened of his class. Unlike the others, he is incredibly strong, and he doesn't need time to rest. He was still sure that our hero had something hidden, so he ordered the others to protect him. A couple minutes later, the 5th wave has begun. As soon as the monsters entered the arena, the humans immediately suffered a loss. Among the 2nd-level mutants, there was a graphite spider, which is characterized by incredible speed, but the most serious opponent was the steel millipede, also a fast opponent, but also possessing strong armor. Oh, and overall, the monsters in this level were much stronger than in previous levels, and considering that there were fewer and fewer people, and the survivors had almost no strength left, it was almost impossible to fight. While the rest of us were fighting the usual zombies, our hero was surrounded. Trapped, Jean had no chance to dodge. That would have been the end if someone else had been in our hero's shoes. Those monsters were nothing to him. He literally tore them apart with his bare hands. By now, everyone had already guessed that Jin wasn't as easy as he looked, but they didn't think he was capable of such a thing. Seeing that our hero was alive after all, the remaining guys began to attack the monsters with all their might. They realized that the only option to win was to focus on the strongest mutant and then kill everyone else. While Tan and Gan were fighting the graphite spider, our hero decided to take on the titanium millipede. After much trying, he'd managed to find the vulnerable ones instead of this mutant. Even so, telekinesis couldn't pierce through the monster's armor, and then Jin had no other option but to use the strongest form of this skill. The destructive power was only enough to shatter the armor, but the monster himself survived. But Jin made up for it quickly with a powerful punch. After our hero single-handedly coped with a high-level boss, the guys realized that they have a chance to get out of this dungeon alive. But Alice still didn't see him as a threat. In her dreams, she was already counting the money she'd get for his outfit. The 5th wave is about to be finished, or has ordered her mercenaries to get ready. She just wanted to break his legs and arms so she could take his equipment and watch him suffer. After a 5-minute break, the 6th wave has begun. Honestly, without Alice's help, even Gina could hardly have survived. The girl even promised that if they survived, she would let them live and just take the reward. Being the strongest awakened, Alice takes on the boss of this wave, Zombie Berserk. I have to admit, despite her terrible character as a warrior, she was amazing. Her attack speed was so high that even agility equipment couldn't raise that rate that high. Thanks to that, for the entire fight, the monster couldn't even touch her. But that wasn't all. In addition to her agility talent, she also had a defense talent. Jean, all the while watching her to find at least one vulnerable spot. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't see any flaws. As suddenly someone shouted, "Men, as soon as Alice is done with the berserk, she's going to rip our heads off. Save as we need more strength." And meanwhile, Alice is really done with the monster. Now the fun begins. After which, she decided to take on the bloody boar that the Tan was fighting. The guy realized this was the perfect moment to attack. From the back, Gan's ice arrow flew at her. To her right was Tan, and straight ahead was the monster. The guys thought it was their only chance, but Jin knew it was a big mistake, and I have to admit, it looked like they did it. Well, when the smoke cleared, everyone saw what really happened. Tan was dead, and she didn't have a scratch on her. Seconds before the explosion, our hero noticed that Alice was able to switch places with her boyfriend. The girl said, "Idiot, you made me use my lifeline, but you're a lot stronger than I thought, so I'm gonna kill you slowly." Unfortunately, Gan didn't stand the slightest chance against her in an even fight. After knocking the guy off his feet, Alice ordered her idiots to collect their rewards. While Alice was taking out the rest of the mutants, the Blood Wolves began to take out the boys' possessions, and those who did not give their earnings voluntarily, they tortured them and took them anyway. Jin do the smart thing. He didn't wait until he was approached, but came and surrendered himself, promising to give up everything if he wasn't tortured, but the Blood Wolves wouldn't listen to him. After all, they had direct orders from Elise to make our hero an invalid. Jean was flapping his tongue for a long time, waiting for the voting to start. And as soon as it started, our hero took the bloody wolf's head off in the same second, and voted in favor of starting the 7th wave on maximum difficulty. Not many people know, but if just one person votes to continue on maximum difficulty, the trials will continue regardless of the votes of the others. Now it's time for the genie to show these bastards what real power is. Seeing the consternation on the face of the blood wolves, the Tan laughed and said, "It's karma. We'll all die together." Alice was freaked out by what our hero had done. She wanted to kill Jin before the 7th wave to change the outcome of the vote. But it was too late. The 7th wave had begun. And it began with the arrival of the Colossal Devourer, an extra-class monster that alone can destroy an entire city. And while everyone was distracted by him, our hero quickly and quietly killed all the blood wolves, taking advantage of the fact that Alice couldn't hear them. Jin asked Gan and Tan to run away as fast as possible. The guys didn't fully understand what was going on, but without too many questions did what he asked. After waiting for the guys to leave, Jin drew his sword and said, "Alice, you probably don't know, but level 3 monsters have spiritual intelligence. They're completely different. They also love to kill people like you. Due to their high intelligence, level 3 mutants always choose higher-ranked opponents to eliminate danger. Which is why she's a priority target for the Colossal Devourer. But she wasn't that easy either. She had a body swap skill that made her able to dodge. After watching her for a while, Jin noticed that her ability had a range limitation. And besides, there weren't that many blood wolves, so she couldn't move around forever. And eventually the Colossal Absorbers caught her. It was the perfect opportunity for the genie to finish off the two of them in one blow. Jumping right above the battlefield, our hero activated the Storm of Swords. The entire sky was covered in bright blue rays. Alice could feel how powerful this attack was, but she didn't understand who had created it. After all, only 3rd-level awakened people in the last stage could do such a thing. She even tried to activate the defense barrier, but the radius and the impact force are too great. A moment later, neither the Colossal Devourer nor Alice was alive. Suddenly, Jin felt a spiritual energy emanating from below. Holy shit, she actually made it out alive. But here's the problem. Her defense barrier has broken. There's no way to get out of here alive. Now the genie was faced with a very hard choice as to what to do. The thing is, he can't kill her anyway. Her passive defense skills are too strong. But she doesn't know that, and she could still kill them all if she wanted to. But our hero decided to play a theatrical play to trick her. He offered her a choice. Either she gives up everything she has in exchange for her life, or he kills her. It was very risky, because if she figured out what was going on, she wouldn't get out of here alive. But luckily our hero had an innate talent for acting. By scaring her properly, Jin got what he wanted. Loot was more than amazing, or gave our hero 3 items because of the blue outfit that cost a fortune. After the deal was done, Alice said, "You got what you wanted, now kill me, but quick." "Not so fast!" screamed our hero, pinning the girl to the earth. "I know you didn't give me everything. Then take it back, you can," Alice replied with tears in her eyes. And then he just let her go. And in that moment, the girl realized everything. Remembering his telekinesis technique, she realized that he simply couldn't kill her. Getting to her feet, Alice said, "Hey, Jean, you can't kill me because you're weak." "I've memorized your face, and believe me, I'm gonna get you wherever you are," he said, laughing. "Look for that Jin all you want. That's not my name at all. And by the time you find me, we'll see who will be stronger." That's it! The dungeon is closed! Our hero managed to trick her. It was incredibly risky. On this risk is clearly worth it. Even without taking Alice's items into account, the loot was impressive. If he sold it all, he would definitely be able to buy the amount of fruit he needed. Right now, our hero's priority was to learn a new high-ranked sword skill. When suddenly on the way home, Jin meets a guy who's obviously had an accident. The man asked Jin to help put the car on its wheels. The guy kindly agreed, but as he got closer, he noticed that this car inside was empty and shabby. While the genie was inspecting the car, a band of bandits came out of the darkness. From the looks of them, they were just common hooligans who were robbing. Without thinking long, our hero took out his dagger and slit their throats in seconds. But one of them managed to escape. Jin quickly remedied this situation by cutting the tendon on his leg. This poor guy tripped over his own foot and fell. It's weird that he got involved with these bullies. But the stranger thing was that his wound wasn't bleeding. Jin was alarmed. He didn't feel any evil energy from him, so he wasn't a mutant or a zombie, but he wasn't human, so what was he? This guy begged for mercy, justifying it by saying he was forced. Jin agreed, but on one condition: the guy had to tell who he really was. After which, he opened his status window. Turns out this guy was an NPC from some dungeon, had some very strange skills that were perfect for trading. But Jean was most interested in the question of how he had managed to get out of the dungeon. But he didn't know how it had happened, and given the plans for the ammunition our hero had gotten, he thought this guy's skills might come in handy. Realizing how to capitalize on the situation, Jin agreed to let the guy live if he signed the contract. The guy didn't even bother to read the terms of the contract and signed it immediately. In fact, it was just an ordinary partnership contract, without any of the pitfalls. And to prove that everything is fair, our hero suggested that the guy go and take all the bandits' bounty for himself. Jean, you got a pittance for them anyway, and so boosted Fairy's confidence level. After which, Jean asked Fari to help sell everything he had, and appointed him his CFO. Thanks to the guy's financial skills, the genie had enough money not only for mental fruit, but also for a luxury apartment. Our hero spent hours eating this fruit non-stop. And eventually, I was able to raise all my stats to the right level. Now it's time to learn the new B rank skill, Shadow Attack. After improvement by the system, this skill became known as Spatial Cut. With his help, our hero can create a spatial rift. When entering it, he gets 1 second of invulnerability, missing any damage. The next day, Jin went to a dungeon called the Lost Battlefield. Along with him, his brother and sister, Russell and Erica, joined him in the lobby. They were both heroes of the second level of the first stage. Even though they were brother and sister, they have very different personalities. Russell is kind and polite, while Erica is the queen of sarcasm. Judging from their equipment, Jin realized that they were from a military family, and one should always be careful with such people. But if you ignore that, they turned out to be quite kind and friendly. As a notice suddenly appeared, a special event in the Lost Battlefield. An introduction to the war will begin in 3 minutes. Please prepare yourselves. In a past life, Jean had heard that special events, paranormal, and mimicry were the 3 main components of the apocalypse. But this was the first time he had ever encountered something like this. Russell said that the special event is constantly replaying snippets of war from the beginning of the apocalypse. In other words, their enemies should be the usual zombie hordes and low-level mutants. And also, Lost Battlefield, one of the safest dungeons as it can be left at any time. Well, if it's like Russell said, it'll be easy to pass. Rossoff and Erica had a clear plan for this battle. But Jin decided to do it his way. He just couldn't wait to try out his new skill in battle. And besides, the monsters here were trash. Even though things didn't go according to plan, Russell and Erica didn't stand aside either. Following the genie, they joined the battle. When all of a sudden the guy yelled, "Hey Jin, we'll hold them off for as long as we can. But I want you to know, if anything, I can always summon some spirit soldiers and increase our advantage." In his past life, our hero had heard rumors that some military men secretly possessed this ability. But he didn't think those rumors were true. "But if anything, it's a military secret. I hope you keep it," Russell added in a serious voice. After this news, our hero decided to watch him for a while, and very apropos, Jean just saved him from certain death. The rest of the first wave passed without incident. At halftime, Russell smoked and offered a gin, but he politely declined. During the conversation, our hero learned that their grandfather is the deputy commander of the Northern Zone, and their father heads a combat unit. And Russell wanted to create his own squad and invited Jean there, but our hero, as always, refused, arguing that he works alone. But to change Jean's mind, Russell offered him the rank of colonel and a salary of 3,000 a month, plus 1,000 bonus. But that's not all. Russell wanted to give our hero full access to the military stores. When Erica heard this, she tried to stop him. And even though the offer was so tempting, Jin still turned it down. Russell couldn't believe it, because he'd made him the best offer he could possibly get. After about half an hour of intense fighting, Russell was beginning to get noticeably tired. He was ready to call out a squad of his warriors. "It's too early if you can't hold on any longer. Retreat! Maneuver all the monsters onto me! I'll handle it!" shouted our hero. After waiting for Russell to move away, Jin jumped over the monsters and activated the Sky Rift. With one attack, the guy took out all the huge level 2 zombies, chopping them in half. Erica and Russell couldn't believe their eyes. This attack looked much stronger than their grandfathers and fathers. Afterward, Russell realized why Jean had turned down his offer. Back to the guys, our hero asked the guy to call his soldiers. They didn't understand why they would do that, considering Jean was so strong. But since he asked, Russell decided to honor his request without further question. The ability to summon spirits, incredibly rare and gives a great advantage in combat. So far, this skill is very weak, so soldiers won't last long. But you didn't have to. You just had to buy some time. After killing a level 2 mutant, Jin didn't find the legendary blue gear after him. He suspected that it would only appear after the soldier's awakening. His instincts told him it had to be around here somewhere. A couple minutes later, Jin found what he was looking for, but with it he discovered a special assignment, titled Last Wish. Jin needed to uncover the origins of the dungeon and solve their problem. There is a special reward for completing this quest. There were no clues or details about this mission, but underneath the blue outfit was an old, tattered folder. This is the diary of a worker who served on the defense line 6 decades ago, during the first zombie outbreak. July 7th. A horde of zombies has broken through the city, but the military has requested reinforcements to stop them. July 20th. Ian told me that he has a girl he likes and she is in a safe zone right behind our troops. So young and already thinking of getting married. On the 24th of July. Our troops failed to stop the zombie horde. The battalion commander told me that since I was not in combat, I could count on an early evacuation if the situation worsened. July 25th. The first wave of zombies had already attacked the safe zone, and I had no idea that the situation would deteriorate so quickly. July 26th. Jan and all my friends were killed. In the morning, the battalion commander asked me to go around the men and see if they had anything last to say to him. The commander died the same day. I didn't get a chance to ask him something. July 27th, I think it's the end. We're surrounded of all my friends. I'm the only one left. The last minutes of our lives, I asked my friends if they had any last words to write down. To my surprise, all the Novobrats said only one thing. Marantz, come home. After reading this military man's journal, Jean realized that the secret test was the Marn's oath. But the only question now is, how do I complete this assignment? A couple minutes later, Jin came back. Russell's soldiers were running low, so the guy suggested finishing the challenge before the level 3 mutants showed up. Listen, do you know how the battle the soldiers lost ended? What happened to them? Jin asked sullenly. According to my grandfather, the battle ended tragically, and there were almost no survivors. But our grandfather is one of the few military men who survived the battle, Russell replied. If it ended so tragically, how did the zombie horde disappear? Added our hero. The details are still unclear, but rumor has it that the zombie horde disappeared on its own. It was obvious that Russell knew nothing about that day. But one thing was certain. Monsters don't disappear on their own. The twins found it strange that the genie suddenly started asking about the battle, and then our hero asked if they knew a soldier named Marantz. They didn't know such a person, but Russell blabbed that after that word there were spirit soldiers who fought for them. How many times have you used that call? Jin asked in a frightened voice. I don't know. Over 100. I usually use them for farming. But each user can only use it once per hunt, Russell replied anxiously. At this point, Jin started to realize something. He asked the boy if he had ever helped them in battle. Not that never, replied Russell. And then our hero had an idea. Perhaps to fulfill a hidden quest, you need to help these spirits defeat the mutants. Coming to the battlefield, our hero only more strongly believed in his theory, because these spirits were one and the same as in the photos in that magazine. The military has been using them all this time, and they've never helped. This is too cruel. 60 years ago, abandoned by the main forces, they fought to the death in defense of their homes. But for those long years they were just numbers in an obituary, all forgotten. The story says the zombie horde disappeared on its own, bullshit. Their unwavering determination and unwillingness to surrender turned them into vengeful spirits trapped here on this battlefield as a special event. Forever relive the battle of your life all over again. Their punishment is to hold back all zombie hordes forever. After all, they know that once they kill level 3 mutants, their secret phrase will no longer work. They'll be free of the curse of helping their descendants destroy monsters forever. The phrase Marantz used to be the hope of their ancestors, used by the military to keep their spirits up, and now they are exploited like slaves. Feeling the pain of their souls, Jin promised to free them from it even at the cost of his own life. Well, for this to work, our hero must help them to deal with a level 3 mutant. Erica realized that there was no way she and her brother could handle a monster of that level, so she asked him to leave before it was too late. But Russell couldn't just walk away and leave Jean alone. He wanted to watch, just a few more seconds, and if in that time he saw that Jen wasn't going to be able to handle the boss, then they would leave. When suddenly a mutant of incredible size appeared on the horizon, it was taller than all the surrounding skyscrapers. Just from his one step, the earth shook like a bomb went off. This monster was known as armor-piercing, because of the distinctive shape of its arms, which were covered with huge spikes. The mere sight of him instilled fear in everyone around him. To fight him alone is madness. Plus, spatial incision is the only muscular technique he has left. But he still doesn't know the full potential of this attack. You can't risk it, but he couldn't back down either. First, we need to get the armor piercer as close as possible. so that the spatial section is maximized. After all, its maximum range our hero does not yet know. But the moment the mutant swung around to attack, Jin realized he couldn't wait any longer. Spatial cut activated. When suddenly Jin shouted, "World, freeze!" is the unique ability of this technique. Here the perception of time is completely different. But the most interesting thing is that in this space, our hero sees everything as through X-rays. He can also choose what he wants to bring to the space, and he can even walk through things like a ghost. That's why the description for this skill said it could ignore any defense. In this space, he is literally invincible, but in the real world, it only takes 1 second. Spatial cuts. Although it doesn't have a strong damage output, it has something much more, is the ability to manipulate time and space.
Turning your enemies into nothing!
To say that Russell and Erica were in shock is an understatement. They had just witnessed it. A normal guy had taken down a level 3 mutant single-handedly in just a second. In their entire lives, they've seen many battles of 3-tiered heroes, but they've never seen anything like this. That's it, the spirits of the soldiers who even after death did their duty are now free and can rest in peace. And after completing a hidden mission, the battlefield will disappear forever. In the last seconds, our hero climbed a tall building and picked up the amulet he found next to the diary, and loudly shouted 3 times, "Marantz!" After which, the spirits saluted our hero and disappeared. After that, Russell asked Jean why he did it. Our hero promised to explain as soon as they got out of here. After this battle, Jin had finally leveled up to level 2 peak. He should be happy, but for some reason he felt anxious. As a friend of Jean's notification has arrived, the mission, Last Wish, has been updated. You can choose to continue the mission and return the soldiers to their homeland, or complete the mission and get special rewards right now. Don't think for a second our hero took the soldiers back to where they should have gone a long time ago. Minutes later, Russell and Erica came over. The guys transferred their rewards for this dungeon to the genie because they thought he fully deserved them. And as a token of gratitude, they invited our hero to one of the best restaurants for dinner. But Jin politely declined, and in return asked Russell to help him find the homes of soldiers from a lost battlefield. With the connections the guy has, it'll be easy to do. A couple minutes later, all the information he needed came in, and Russell even called in a landing craft to get Jin there. After waiting until they were alone, Erica said, "Look, isn't this a little over the top? How do we explain that the lost field is gone? You know what Grandpa went through to get that training field." "I know, but not only will I help him cover it up, I take full responsibility," Russell answered rudely. Something made the guy trust our hero. And besides, he was sure it wouldn't be the last time they'd see each other. And besides, Russell realized Jean had no allies now that he asked for information. And in the future, an ally like Jin could come in handy. Those soldiers from the lost field had been friends since childhood and came from one distant village. Upon arriving there, Jin started asking the locals if they knew anything about the battle that took place 60 years ago. And among them, there was one grandfather who shed a tear at the sight of the photo. Looking at the photograph, the old man whispered softly, "You are home, Marantz." And that's it. Jean's made good on his promise. In addition, Russell's people found 4 other people in this village who knew the people in the picture. Also, at Jin's request, they arranged for him to meet the village chief. Our hero allotted 4,000 points to build a monument on top of the hill in honor of these soldiers. And with the rest of the money, he asked the headman to buy food for the people. So he wanted to remember those heroes, and thank the locals for remembering them. Mission Last Wish is complete. As a reward, our hero received 100 reputation points, and the additional quest, The Oath, is also completed. As a reward, Jin received a blue necklace that increased all stats by 1 point. It also increased the recovery rate of health and spiritual energy, and had a unique skill called Unshakable Faith. Perhaps one of the most important rewards was reputation, which money can't buy. Perhaps it will be useful in further developing the influence of the genie in the army. Speaking of influence in the army, Jean is already at the level where you should be thinking about it, and Russell could be a pretty good option. But before trusting him, our hero decided to check him out again just in case. On his return, Jean called Russell with an unusual request. Our hero wanted to take 2 blue swords from the military arsenal. It's a very unusual request, and it's not that easy to do, even with the guy's connections. After all, blue balls don't just walk down the road and cost a fortune. But despite all the difficulties, racially he promised to help. The boy was overjoyed that Jin had turned to him again. After all, it meant that he was beginning to trust him. After completing the dungeon, Jin only got 3 points to his stats. And for selling other materials from the dungeon, he wouldn't get too much, not even enough for a mental fruit. And when you advance to level 3, you'll have a chance to double all your stats. In his last life, Jin hastily advanced to the 3rd level, having only 20 points in each characteristic at level 2, resulting in low base characteristics at level 3. So this time, he wanted to reach level 2 peak before taking the level up mission, when suddenly, while walking through the city, our hero felt a level 3 murderous aura. Things were bad. In an equal fight against a level 3, our hero doesn't stand a chance. There aren't many level 3 heroes in the entire city. Maybe it's Captain Derek that Jin stole the loot from, but that was unlikely, given the fact that Commander Xiao still hadn't figured out you did. It was probably Alice. But how could she figure out Jin so quickly? Plus, all of Jin's skills are on cooldown right now, so we should try to get away from the pursuit. But the fact that his pursuers take no action means they don't know about the reload. Jin decided not to take any chances, and hid in the most crowded place he could find. The only place to go was the Blue Oyster Bar. At the time of the apocalypse, only the very rich could afford alcohol. So our hero's companion for tonight was some spoiled girl. Since Jin was the only other person at the bar besides her, he caught her eye. But the girl was in no hurry to talk. She only glanced at him from time to time. But she also caught our hero's eye. Judging by the way she is dressed, dyed hair, bright makeup, this girl is going through a rebellious period. After a couple of margarita glasses, the girl decided to go for the Jin after all. As she got closer, Jin noticed a few more interesting details. Her earrings and rings were part of the blue outfit, and all of her guards were 2nd-level advanced soldiers. Apparently, she was an incredibly powerful person who could afford it. After cocktails, the girl offered to join her. "I'm sorry, I'd love to, but I don't have any money at the moment," replied Jin. Laughing, the girl added, "Don't worry, I'll pay for everything. Hey bartender, 2 cocktails." After a couple more cocktails, the girl became even bolder, and suggested to the Jin that he join her at the hotel tonight. Normally, Jin would have refused such an offer, but he could still feel that murderous aura. Even a level 3 person would think several times before attacking a squad of level 2 professional guards. Jin had a hope that once he got out with this girl, the stalker would be gone and he could go home. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, so he had to go to a hotel after all. Already in the hotel, our hero learned that the girl's name is Evelyn Parker. She is the daughter of the famous Vlad Parker, commander of the Safe Zone 317, and president of the trading company, Starlight. In a past life, when Jin was a desperate refugee, he worked security for a Starlight trading company, clearing zombie. Upon learning who Evelyn was, our hero said, "By the way, your dad is still my boss. I don't want to hear about him. I hate that old man. He's terrible," replied the girl angrily. "To hell with him, I want you to fondle me," Evelyn added. It was obvious that she had a fight with her dad and was doing all this to get back at him. At that moment, Jin had an idea. He was going to scare her so that he could clean her up. And the best way to scare a man is to give him what he wants and more. Plopping Evelyn on the bed, Jin pretended to be ready for all the dirty things that existed. Not expecting such insolence, the girl jumped out of bed and ran away, saying she had to take a shower. As expected, she turned out to be such a fun catch herself. Although she's been acting like a hunter all evening, Evelyn wants to appear, bold and cool, but she's actually humble and helpless, so she's not likely to get out of the bath anytime soon. Jin thought he could go home, but that murderous aura was still there, and there was also the silhouette of a stalker. And judging by the physique, it wasn't a woman. Looking back, even after 2 lifetimes, Jin still has no answers about the time he blacked out before evaluating the awakening. A complete stranger killed himself out of guilt. Something doesn't add up. But if it was the person behind the incident, trying to kill him, he could have just poisoned Jin back in the beginning. Why go to such lengths? Come to think of it, Alice was badly injured last time. She should still be recovering. But maybe she has connections to other hunter teams and didn't hire someone to kill the genie. It doesn't really matter who it is. What we need to do now is find a way to get rid of the stalker and get out of here. Then our hero decided to contact Fairy to buy him a camouflage kit. After which, he simply walked out of the hotel room, and when asked by the guards why he was leaving, simply replied that Evelyn was very drunk. Be that as it may, Jin was grateful that she had helped him hide. And meanwhile, Fairy got the best camouflage kit he could find in a while. The costume was very realistic, turning the genie into a regular middle-aged man. After leaving the hotel and walking for a bit, Jin noticed that the murderous aura began to weaken, which meant the disguise worked perfectly. Well, now one thing has become obvious. Our hero needs to get to the 3rd level as quickly as possible, or else he is not alive. And as for Evelyn, he was indeed grateful to her and wished her well. He even wrote a note before he left. 2 days later, our hero went to another dungeon, but this time with 2 new swords that Russell got him. one of which was a sword called the Dragon's Eye, enchanted with blazing flames. It consumes 270 points of spiritual energy per second, and the blade's temperature can reach 2,000 degrees. And the second sword was named Sharp Web. It consumed 240 points of spiritual energy per second, and increased the sharpness of the blade by several times. That's all very well. But with our hero's current supply of spiritual energy, it's only enough for a short fight. These two swords plus the lightning speed of Thunderbolt Boots, Blood Spirit Armor Shield, Crippling Blade of Armor, Necklace Resilience, and with his 3 ultimate skills on cooldown, he could barely cloak himself to level 3 and enter the Gates of Hell dungeon. The Gates of Hell is an underground dungeon. On each next floor, zombie or mutant attacks await the awakened, and on the last floor, there will be a 3rd-level Pika mutant. Past the abundant rewards for mutants, there is also a crystalline spiritual energy material that is different from other dungeons. If you're lucky enough to find a large piece, it can be worth more than any blue gear. Since this is an extra-class dungeon, there are 40 participants to complete the dungeon. Achievement. Maximum values of Jin's 2nd-level characteristics directly depends on the result of passing this dungeon. Most people, as soon as they joined the dungeon, started mining those very crystals. At this moment, there are 40 awakened men in the dungeon, and 21 of them are professional soldiers. After just a few seconds, one of the awakened men lined up the soldiers behind him and said, "Everyone, this dungeon is controlled by the army, so consider yourself lucky. I am the colonel of the 7th Army Group, level 3 awakened ones, Yaslav. We are now surrounded by 18 tunnels teeming with zombies. Survive, and you will be richly rewarded. Each tunnel will have 3 people in a group. Act efficiently, maximize your gains. If more than this number goes into the tunnel, each participant's share of the loot will decrease. When we reach the 7th floor, all the tunnels will converge. There we will attack the elite mutants together. We have 4 3-levels and 10 2nd-level spades among the military. And so, you can team up in pairs and get behind one of us," Yaslav added. For many people, the appearance of the military could be a real lifesaver. But other awakened people realized that it would get them into trouble. Yaslav had set up a tax. If anyone went with a level 3 military, they would have to give 70% of the loot, and if with a level 2, half. Simply put, the military will take most of the spoils, with no guarantee of safety. At this point, our hero realized that in addition to the monsters in this dungeon, he will have to fight with people. The awakened had a few minutes to make a decision. Some were happy with the military's offer, some were not. Seeing the doubts in some people, one came forward and said, "Hi everyone, my name is Mintacraft. You can just call me Mint. I'm a level 3 awakened. I'll take a few people with me, and for half the loot." Jin didn't expect that there would be someone of the 3rd level among the ordinary awakened ones. And judging from his clothes, he was from the Demon Hunter Guild. And following Mint, a guy named Han, also a level 3 awakened with the same conditions, stepped forward. As suddenly our hero was seized by a strange feeling, as if he had met the Khan before, though his face was unfamiliar to him. And then Han said, "Look who's here, it's Jin." It all made sense now. Jin had sensed his aura. It was him. He had been stalking him a couple days ago. It was probably just a coincidence. But luckily, the recharging of all the skills had already finished. To increase his chances, Jin introduced himself as a level 3 rookie who only takes 40% of the reward. Our hero will make sure that as many of the awakened as possible go with him to escape the Khan. While the awakened were thinking, Han approached Jin and said, "You're already level 3, aren't you? Alice said you were at the peak of level 2, but I don't think you've made it that fast. We're less than a minute away from the mission, and everyone's in groups, and only our hero was left without partners. This time it didn't work out." Jin's loneliness only confirmed Khan's hunch. Whatever the case, we must wait for the right moment and kill him before it was too late. But not only was Jin on his own, the team was also missing Scarlet and Bean. Bean specialized in melee attacks, and Scarlet in ranged attacks. But in this dungeon they were the weakest, so they found a team. Being with someone is better than being alone, so Jin took them for himself. Along the way, our hero learned that Scarlet only had 3 level 1 skills, and Bin had a spirit machine gun that could barely handle level 1 monsters. And what Jin said, "Guys, your power. How did you guys get here in the first place?" "Come on, I'm kidding. Together we're not so weak, so if we work as a team we can survive," added the genie. When suddenly, our hero felt someone approaching at great speed. It was the zombie horde. Almost 500 zombies, of which 2 of them were level 1. The guys understood that they were useless in this dungeon, but they weren't going to stand idly by, leaving all the monsters on Jin. Given Han's appearance, Jin was forced to conserve spiritual energy to the maximum. Our hero planned to mop up the same without using skills or special effects of his weapon as long as possible. Now, on the first floor, monsters are not much different from normal animals. Literally, in a minute, the genie single-handedly cleared the entire first floor. For killing a level 1 mutant, our hero received 170 spirit crystals and another 210 crystals for the second monster. And for clearing the floor, all team members received 100 fragments of spirit crystals each. And with the commission, Gina, Bean, and Scarlet each got 60 fragments, doing nothing. Sometime later, on the 7th floor, Yaslav, Han, and Mint, along with their teams, had been waiting for Jin for over 10 minutes. No one understood what was going on, and only Han knew that Jin was delayed because of not using his main skill. For the hunter, everything is just perfect. Our hero will be difficult to cope with the mutant at the peak of the 2nd level, without a special skill, and then the Khan will have a better chance to finish Jin. They need to defeat at least 5 level 2 peak mutants to sweep the 7th floor. To maximize income, each of the 3 tiers must flush out one strongest mutant. Scarlet and Bean realized that they might be in big trouble on the 7th floor. After all, on the previous floor, it was difficult for Jin to deal with a mutant at the peak of the 1st level. They just don't know what their captain is really capable of yet. As soon as the monsters appeared, Jin had an idea. The mutants were standing close together, and if he could take them all out at once with one blow, it would be his reward. Han videoed that our hero was up to something, and knowing about his abilities, he was waiting. The man was going to kill Jin, right after our hero activates his strongest skill. With this in mind, our hero decided to wait a while and not activate the SSS-Rank skills, and instead, take advantage of the unique Dragon's Eye ability. Its power should be enough for level 2 mutants, and it turned out, in front of everyone, our hero sliced a whole crowd of monsters in half with one blow, thereby proving to everyone that he is a true level 3 hero. And most importantly, he proved it to Khan, so the man would think again before attacking. For killing all the mutants of the 2nd level, our hero received 6,000 crystals, which is equal to 60,000 credits. And with it, Bean and Scarlet earned 400 crystals each. When it was over, Yaslav came up to our hero and said, "Did you seriously hold back? That was amazing." Jin awkwardly replied, "I'm sorry, I didn't calculate my strength." "What are you talking about, random? You killed all the strongest monsters, leaving the others with nothing. There is such a thing as fair play," said Han angrily. Jin knew at once what he was trying to accomplish. Han realized that he couldn't win alone, so he wanted to stir up a wave of discontent by turning the army against our hero. But apparently he didn't know one thing about this dungeon. The purification principle doesn't work here, so you can summon 2nd level monsters several times. Realize the plan is going to go awry. Han starts yelling at Jin, accuse him of looking down on everyone. But Yaslav was on Jin's side. He didn't see any problem with what had happened. The problem is that there are too many monsters for everyone, and our hero will have to fight again. Yaslav asked the genie to restrain his strength this time so that the other awakened ones would also get their reward. Han turns out to be not as stupid as he would have liked. After what happened, the man wants to use another level 2 monster to force Jin to use his trump card. But Jin read the move ahead of time and came up with a plan, especially since Jin wanted to save his skills for the 3-level monster on the 14th floor. This time, our hero's adversary is a giant crocodile, the defensive type. It's almost impossible to break through his defenses without using strong skills. But Jin had a strategy for fighting monsters like this. You have to hit and run until the mutant gets tired. Our hero, such a monster in small combinations. But it had no effect. Even with the blue swords, Jin's attacks were very weak. Meanwhile, Han was dealing with his monster, occasionally glancing at our hero. The man noticed that without any special skills, Jin was incredibly weak. All he had to do to fulfill Alice's assignment was to wait for the right moment and crush our hero's skull. And to cope with the crocodile, our hero had to activate a special skill, Sharp Web. This time, the result was already more significant. However insufficient, the crocodile's armor proved to be much stronger than Jin had anticipated. Even with the enchanted blue sword, he was unable to cut off the mutant's leg. This level 2 mutant had one interesting skill. After taking high damage, the speed and power of his attacks would increase, making it even harder to fight him. Seeing our hero in trouble, Bean and Scarlet decided to help him out. The guy fired a spiritual machine gun at the crocodile's head, and the girl tried to pierce his armor with ice spikes. As expected, to absolutely no avail. Not really though, they made the crocodile pay attention to them with their attacks. So they helped Jin, but now they're in trouble. When he saw that they were the mutant's target, the boys were terrified. They realized they couldn't do anything to him. At this moment, Jin appeared and attacked at the monsters right in the face. He ordered the guys to retreat and don't interfere anymore. Although our hero can't kill it in one hit, but after activating special skills, the damage definitely became higher. Combo attacks, Stalin wearing paint more damage, and the hit-and-run strategy finally started working. Meanwhile, Yaslav has already dealt with the level 2 mutant, and Mint has already sorted his out. Han and the rest of the 3 tiers were done as well, and our hero was still fighting. But it's fair to say that only Jin got the monster with enhanced defenses. The other Awakened didn't understand how this was happening. 5 minutes ago, he had killed 8 level 2 mutants with a single blow, and now you can barely manage one. After watching our hero for a while, Yaslav was even more confused. All the damage our hero dealt to the mutant was solely due to his swords, not his own strength. But that's not the main problem right now. Since it's already over, Han was just waiting for the right moment to deal with our hero. And to make it look like an accident, the man decided to pretend he wanted to help. See Han approaching, Jin realized. We need to do something about it now, so he doesn't have a chance of pulling it off. Our hero had to activate all his sword skills to the max to finish off the crocodile in one blow. Of course, it wastes an incredible amount of spiritual energy, but it's worth it because it could save his life. And yet, with a double attack, the genie managed to break through the crocodile's thick armor and even fracture its skull. And just then, Han came running in with his golden hammer. As expected, he attacked Jin. But the guy had a surprise for him in the form of a bloody soul's defense barrier. Han didn't expect such a thing, so when his attack failed, he bounced back, and our hero easily finished off the crocodile by slicing its neck. Han was very angry that his attack failed, when suddenly Yaslav said, "Well, it looks like he doesn't need your help." Our hero's protective barrier was familiar to the man. It was the same protective barrier that Alice used. Han guessed that Jin was wearing her equipment. He also knew that it consumed a lot of spiritual energy, which meant that Jin wouldn't be able to use it forever. Finished with the mutant, the guy said. "It's like you're looking for an excuse to attack me, isn't it, Han?" Yaslav also noticed that the man's behavior had changed, and he tried to stop him. "I realize you have questions for me, but give instructions to the 14th floor and decide everything there, so as not to see the employee off." Our hero added, smiling wryly. "What? You don't plan on just walking out of here?" Khan asked in surprise. This time, the mercenary didn't realize whether Jin was bluffing or not. After all, he thought that he had already killed the crocodile with his strongest skill. After all, they had agreed that they wouldn't get into an argument until the 14th floor, so as not to disturb the others. Yaslav was certainly curious about what was between these two, but the dungeon reward interested him more. Like last time, each team chose their own tunnel. Already on the 8th floor, the awakened ones faced big problems. The monsters on these floors were much stronger than before. Even Han and his team had trouble with these monsters. During a sweep of the 8th floor, one of the team members was seriously injured. The monsters on these floors possessed high intelligence, so the priority target was to choose the strongest of the team. If it wasn't for partner Han screaming, he'd be fodder for those mutants. Luckily for him, the guy who possessed long-range attacks was still in formation and helped him survive. When suddenly Han said, "Damn it, she almost killed me. From now on, I'm taking 90% of the bounty. If you don't like it, get out." The man realized that since one guy was left without an arm and the other had little spiritual energy, they needed him. Simply put, the guys have no choice but to agree to Han's new terms. It's better to walk away with 10% of the loot than not walk away at all. Yaslav's team was doing much better. They made it to the 15th floor without any problems. His team was sure they were the best of the best, and at some point let their guard down. And she paid for it. The monster hit one of them in the head, so fast that no one even noticed. On this floor, their squad must deal with a monster like a zombie ray. Meanwhile, Jean, Bean, and Scarlet were clearing the 12th floor. So far, they hadn't had any major problems, but there were electromagnetic screams coming from the tunnels they had entered. The boys were surprised, but there were hardly any monsters in their path, and Jin had led them in strange ways. Bean suspected that our hero has some unique skill that allows him to see where the mutants are. As suddenly, Jean stopped abruptly and stared into the darkness for a long time. And then he said, "Right in front of us, 20 meters away is a ghoul. We can't go around it. And in the next tunnel, there's a cow-eater hiding. And on the right, underground, appears a bone-eater," added Jean. "Master, you don't just think of a monster. Do you see them?" Sim asked Bing in surprise. But in reply, our hero only said, "Go right, I'll finish him. Meet me at the third right turn in half a minute." After weighing the pros and cons, our hero chose to go with the ghoul to minimize the expenditure of spiritual energy. Half a minute later, Bean and Scarlet came running to the third turn, just as Jean had ordered, while he met the bonehead. Meanwhile, most of the team has already made it to the 14th floor. Unfortunately, many awakened died in these tunnels. The monsters here were much stronger than they supported. And among the military, the losses are also greater. For Yaslav, it is emphasized that he does not comply with the crystal mining regulations. A couple minutes later, Han and Mint came out of the tunnel with one of their team members. Apparently, of Khan's crew, only he survived, and he was seriously wounded. Just like last time, everyone waited, but our hero was in charge. Approaching Yaslav, Han said, "Look, he is not what he wants to appear to be. He just put on his equipment, and that's all. And what he did on the 7th floor is just a one-time action. There's no point in waiting for him anymore. I highly doubt that this idiot even survived," added the Khan. And just at this moment from tunnel number 18, our hero's exit team is fully composed. There wasn't the slightest scratch on them. They all looked as if they hadn't even fought, full of vigor and inspiration. Han couldn't think with his eyes. He was sure Jin wouldn't survive. Mint, it's also not the same how this could happen. To which Bean and Scarlet said it was all credit to Jean. The other awakened were upset that she didn't choose Gina, for many of them had lost their friends in those tunnels. Putting the dagger to Hana's face, Jin said, "You were sure I would die there. As you can see, I'm fine. You're already thinking about the will." "Bastard, you've been here before. You know all the routes. Why didn't you tell me about it?" Khan asked in a trembling voice. Khan once again tried to prepare a military force against our hero. But here's the inconvenience. Yaslav knew the landscape was different every time. At this point, it became obvious to the guy that Gina had some faults in detecting mutants, and he wanted him to recruit his squad. With each passing second, Han realized more and more that the genie was much stronger than Alice had told him. Jin realized that he had the upper hand at the moment, and he wanted to deal with the Khan right now. "But Colonel, ask Geneval and find out after they're done with the monsters. This floor features 2 mutants in the early stages of the 3rd level. Yaslav wanted the military to deal with him while the rest of us chatted with the other mutants. But Han was strongly disagreed, as the military had 4 level 3 fighters and 6 at peak level 2, and they only had 3 level 3 fighters, and one of which he highly doubted. Seriously, do you doubt that the man who finished off 8 pike monsters at once on the 2nd level with 1 blow is deceiving us? For that matter, we can help you with the commission, but it will be higher," Colonel Yaslav replied menacingly. "Don't worry, I'll take care of it. And if you need help, call me," John said with a smile on her face. Such confidence of our hero that I made Khan seriously nervous, and the Mint interested. Having devised a plan, it's time to finally end this dungeon. The main mutants on this floor were 2 level 3 grave worms. Was planned, Yaslav and his soldiers took one of them, and the rest of the level 3 awakened ones, level 2. Han went first because of his defensive skills. But Jean, don't be in a hurry to join the fight. He needed a plan. Han noticed that our hero is standing off to the side, just watching. To maximize performance to level 2, performance alone is not enough. So Jean decided to come to the rescue. And to get the maximum boost from this dungeon, you need to make sure that it is Jin's sword that interrupts this mutant's life. But without activating the SSS-Rank skills to do so, it was almost impossible. Just as suddenly, he activated his boot's electric spikes skills. After attacking the monster, he pretended to accidentally jump back and landed right on Khan's head, thereby shocking the man with a powerful electric shock, after which he immediately ran away. Unlike our hero, the Khan could not afford to stay. Khan can be considered the best fighter when it comes to defense or offense, but when it comes to speed in it, he has lost to just about everyone. But even he is unable to withstand the chairman of the level 3 mutant's barrage of attacks. Eventually, a grave worm managed to knock his leg off. Seeing this, Jin asked if he was okay. "Are you mocking me, and I seem fine?" "You better help me," replied the Khan. "The year as a whole, the fighting has been pretty good. Slowly but surely, people are asking for help. It indicates that the genie needs to be popped. The thing is, killing one mutant isn't enough for him. He needs to close his eyes. Now the mutants are apart from each other. You need to make it too far away so that they are at least 100 meters apart. In order to do this, Jin advised all level 2 heroes to step back, while he and the Khan poisoned the grave worm. Just as our hero planned, the monster chased them. Han thought Jin was crazy. The guy replied, "I have a plan. Just hold on for 3 seconds and you'll see for yourself." To trust their enemy, in a normal place, death is tantamount, but the men had no other choice. Unfortunately, the mutant caught up with Khan too soon, so Jin ditched him and keeps walking towards the squad soldiers. He shouted, "Colonel, watch your back, and I can't support him anymore." Yaslav didn't expect this development. Confused, he continues to mutant kick himself. So everything went strictly according to our hero's plan. caught between two grave worms. Our hero has asked everyone to step back, but the mutants were still pretty far apart. So Jin wanted to piss them off first, for them to start running towards him at the same time, and then only activate their rank skills. Yaslav and Hans saw it and almost died of shock, thinking that this was the super attack of our hero. But the best part is yet to come. After waiting for the two grave worms to come the closest, Jin activated the Storm of Swords, and with two blue swords, the damage from this strike became even more devastating. Seeing this, Mint realized that compared to our hero, he was just a helpless bug. And it just so happens that Han was accidentally hit by this attack. Picked up his shield and hammer, our hero said, "You're dead, protect me. I'll take care of all the equipment, rest in peace." And everyone else just watched as he gathered his inventory. Clearly, it's impossible to compete with him. After clearing the 14th floor, the Awakened received a notification of reward accrual. I had to choose to continue or quit. Of the military, soberly assessed their strength, so they were going to leave the dungeon. But our hero wasn't going to continue. Honestly, now he only had a space cut left that he didn't want to waste. But before leaving the dungeon, Yaslav said, "The army will buy back all spirit crystals from you at an above-market price of 11 credits apiece." For the regular Awakened ones, it was amazing news because they could earn even more. Needless to say, even Mint was happy about this news. Well, for the Jinn, the Colonel had a special offer. 12 credits for 1 crystal. Our hero agreed to sell all the crystals on one condition, if Yaslav tells us why the army needs so many crystals. The higher leadership launched a nurture project, helping low-level Awakened ones to level up. In the course of their experiments, they learned that this required an incredible amount of spiritual crystals. Since our hero was familiar with the subject, he realized it was a completely stupid idea. After all, to raise a person from the first level to the highest step of the second level, one must spend no less than crystalline millions. However, Yaslav's offer was quite favorable, so he agreed to give all his crystals for 300,000 credits. Colonel, without a second thought, agreed to this deal. Then he asked our hero if he was going to go through this dungeon again. No, going through the same dungeon with the same people is absolutely useless because the reward will decrease, replied our hero. I understand, but I want to warn you. If you attract other people to pass this dungeon, it will attract the attention of General Tang and all these crystals we collect for his second son. The thing is that his son has a very high potential. Even when he is at level 2 peak, he can easily break level 3 peak barriers. When suddenly our hero shouted angrily, "Shut up! Get out as soon as you finish trading!" I didn't understand what he did wrong, but he didn't argue. Our hero, angered by the fact that his income seems insignificant against the funds the army invests in its projects. Of course they can pump the general's son up to level 3. The problem is that this kid won't have enough combat experience. The genie used to think he had everything he could wish for in his past life, but now he realizes that he was actually worthless. What he considered significant then now seems utterly insignificant on the present scale. He is currently using the most resources among those who are at the second level, but even that's not enough. Our hero must raise the level of all his skills to the maximum and as fast as possible. When it's time to level up, he'll be able to enter the first stage and he'll have enough power to change the current situation. Considering that all characteristics have very impressive stats, our hero needs to eat an incredible amount of them to raise everything to the maximum. It's hard to count the exact amount, so Jin decided to eat them first and then see if it was enough. Eating psychic fruits, all of our hero's characteristics gradually increased, but with each bite, their effectiveness became less and less. Having eaten the last fruit, our hero received a notification that all characteristics are at the maximum of the second level. For this achievement, the Sword God system gave our hero a chance to spin the Wheel of Fortune. This opportunity only comes up a few times when you reach max level. From the Wheel of Fortune could drop divine armor or a sword that doubles damage. But we can say that our hero was unlucky this time, and he only got a Ring of Luck. But really, is he that unlucky? Maybe this ring is a lot stronger than it looks at first glance. Despite having no visible properties, this ring has the incredible ability to store 1,000,000 cubic meters. It's simply amazing. That means Gene can take hundreds of nuclear combat heads anywhere inside that ring with him. Not only that, this ring also has a willpower transformation skill. This means that our hero can transform willpower into any desired attribute right during combat. Purely in theory, with this skill, Jin will be able to unlock level 5 abilities. This ring also opens access to a world of good fortune, in which the wearer of the ring will have a certain advantage. This news surprised Gene greatly. After all, he had never heard of the world of luck before, not even in his past life. Jin had originally planned to sell this ring, but his ability is too unique to dispose of it so ridiculously. Instead, Our hero was going to sell the Khan's outfit and use the money to buy spiritual fruit. But then Jin received a system notification that ordinary spiritual fruits could increase the characteristics up to a maximum of level 30. In order to overcome this barrier, he needed high-grade fruits. These fruits cost a lot more than regular fruit. But there's no other choice. The zombie horde will attack the safe zone in 2 days, and the genie needs to maximize his stats before then. The plan was to level up to the maximum, and in a battle with a horde of zombies to prove themselves, then take part in the test to level up. But there was one small problem. It was impossible to get high-grade fruit now. Nobody was selling them. And if anyone did sell them, the army bought them up at an incredible rate, overpaying double the price. With the zombie horde about to arrive, Jean decides to turn to Russell for help. And what a coincidence. The guy called the genie before our hero could do so. Russell called our hero for a reason. A new supernatural class dungeon was discovered today. And the guy was chosen to lead the cleanup of this dungeon. And he called to ask Jean for help. What was interesting was that this dungeon was just starting to form. And there are no system quests that usually appear in such places yet. And now, while there is no specific dungeon goal, the perfect opportunity to go exploring and find out what's what. In addition, such dungeons are usually crowded with otherworldly creatures. However, in this case, the situation is somewhat different. Only one entity is currently active. Russell offered Jean 10,000 credits in case they didn't complete the mission. But if you do, 70% of all production plus 30,000 credits. This offer was incredibly lucrative even for Russell, so Jean suspected something was up. As it turns out, the guy's family wants to create a combat guide for going through this dungeon and sell it in the future. After thinking it over again, our hero agreed, but added a few points. He wants to produce 20% of future produce and high-quality spiritual fruits. It seems reckless to go into a dungeon when the zombie horde is on its way. But the fact is that the type of this dungeon does not require unique physical skills. It is quite possible that the basic characteristics of our hero will be enough. Besides Russell and Jean, there's going to be a few other people going down that dungeon, one of whom was the son of a vice president of a trading company named Walter. And with him, there was a mercenary to guard him named Feng. This mercenary was only level 2 in agility. But he thought he was the king of the dungeon, and such self-esteem is justified. He is often hired to go through such dungeons. Because in addition to agility, Fan also had a talent for psychic attacks, just like our hero. After finishing their conversation, they finally decided to head to the dungeon, when suddenly the mercenary said, "Listen to my orders after we get inside. We will follow the instructions as I received from my system." System instructions? Is this dungeon still taking shape? Aren't there any system missions there? Jin asked in surprise. Ha ha ha, silly boy. It's my ability. It allows me to receive additional information from the system about what's going on. Feng replied snidely. I can see why he's so confident. It's a skill that gives him an advantage, because he knows in advance what's in store for him. The village our heroes have come to is by a river. The locals sell water to the safe zone. However, the soldiers found that the wheels of their rickshaws were rusty, meaning that they had not visited the safe zone for a long time. Judge, all the local people don't realize they need to sell their water. It's like they are stuck in an endless cycle. They keep drawing water from the river and filling jugs with it. Suddenly, one of the locals came up to them and asked what they were doing here. Russell said that they had come here because of information that the water in their river was polluted. At that moment, the man's face changed dramatically. Jin immediately realized that the man obviously knew something, so he pounced on him with questioning. But no matter how hard our hero tried, the man denied it and said he didn't know anything about it. When suddenly a man said, 7 days ago, Shu's death has nothing to do with us. She stole something and jumped into the river. After saying that, Russell joined the conversation. He asked the man how it had happened, but the man's only response was to repeat one phrase. We had nothing to do with it. Jean, like everyone else, didn't really believe the man. Realizing that talking to him would get them nowhere, our hero asked to take them to the family of the deceased. A little thought, the man agreed. After just a few minutes, they were there. This house was very different from all the others, at least because of the fact that it was incredibly cold inside. And in the backyard, they found about a dozen jugs full of water. I wonder how they got here and why they didn't freeze. When suddenly an old lady appeared out of thin air and started beating her fists on the water with all her might. She didn't look like a ghost. Maybe she's a person affected by the dungeon. And according to that man's gossip, it's the victim's mom. Having finished splashing water, the old woman turned to our heroes and asked who they were. Based on past experience, our hero said, Grandma, we are here to investigate your daughter's death. We will help you get justice. She's not dead. My daughter is in the water. You must help me find her. the old woman replied. Jean, she seems to be out of it. We won't be able to get any information from her, Russell whispered. He asked the old woman where her granddaughter was. My granddaughter takes water from the river. She'll be back at night. Feng's ability is activated only near key clues, so now our heroes are stumped. The only option was to go to the river and find this grandmother's granddaughter. But Feng was against the idea. He suggested waiting for his granddaughter here. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to realize he's hiding something. A couple minutes later, a little girl comes running into the house with a huge bucket full of water. Apparently, this is your grandmother's granddaughter.
Running, the girl spilled some water on the floor.
At that moment, our hero smelled a strong odor of blood. It was too dangerous to approach the strange girl. So Gina decided to activate the psychic probe to see where the smell was coming from. In the bucket, our hero saw a human tongue, which gave off that awful odor. Seeing our heroes, the girl angrily asked who they were and what they were doing here, as suddenly the Feng abruptly turned around and whispered, I just got a hint from the system, don't piss it off! Hi, don't worry. We're military intelligence. We found out that your mom disappeared, and we're here to find her, said our hero with a smile. Lies. She didn't disappear. She was brutally murdered by the villagers. It seemed to me that this girl was the only one in the village who could think straight. After which, Yuppie gave our hero a piece of paper, on which she wrote down the names of all those involved in her mother's death. As soon as she gave me that sheet, she said, Mom's already home. You don't have to look for her. You can go straight to catch them. Seeing the confusion on our hero's face, the girl started to get angry. Remembering the mercenary's words, Jin tried to calm her down. He promised that tomorrow morning the guilty would be arrested. At that moment, the girl's face changed dramatically, and she said in a low and creepy voice, Okay, but if you lie, I'll kill you all. For some reason, those words evoked a genuine terror within everyone. I didn't have any idea what to do. So Feng offered to stay in the house for the night. The man was sure they were dealing with a very ordinary ghost. And to figure out what to do next, the fan has to be there for the system to give him a clue. And since the phantom most often attacks the strongest, our hero will be the bait. Jean honestly didn't care about being bait or anything else. The most important thing for him was to get what he promised. In addition to the ghost, our hero felt seriously threatened by the mercenary, and the fact that he was hiding something was 100%. But what exactly and for what purpose? There are only two things you need to do to get through this dungeon. Find the body of the murdered woman, and get revenge. But our hero doubted it was that simple. After all, the level of this dungeon is much higher than usual. But Feng was convinced that that's what they were doing. Our heroes suggested that the girl's body could be in one of the abandoned houses, or somewhere near the banks of the river. Though the mercenary's assumptions made sense, Jin still felt something was wrong. Recall the present day, our hero realized that Feng had concealed something important from him by the river, and then proposed to look for the body there. In addition to all this, his words were clearly threatening to our hero. There is no doubt some financial motive behind it, from which we can conclude that the river is a high-risk area, especially since he decided to explore the house alone tonight. Maybe there's something valuable hidden in there. It makes sense that if Jin survives and he doesn't manage to get hold of the thing, it will become him. When you look at it that way, it makes sense. But it wasn't just Feng that bothered Jin. He was worried about his daughter's thirst for revenge, when suddenly Jin heard a loud sound like hitting something hard, and every second it got louder and louder, and it was coming from the roof. Thanks to his high level of psychic energy, our hero forcibly commanded the ghost to manifest itself. Everything happened exactly as Feng said it would. The ghost chose the strongest of them. For just such an occasion, Jean had some envy beads he'd gotten in the last supernatural dungeon. These beads increase the damage of psychic attacks by 25%, and allows you to block lethal attacks from supernatural creatures. Jin was able to create a sword out of spiritual energy. Seconds before impact, our hero sensed something was wrong with this ghost. Before Jin could do anything, the spirit flew away. Realizing she was off to find another victim, Jin gave chase. But when I ran outside, the ghost was gone. But then Jin heard horrible screams from two different places at the same time. When Russell and Walter heard the screams, they immediately ran to the house where our hero had slept. The guys started asking our hero about the screams, to which he replied, the phantom probably killed two people at the same time. After thinking for a while, Jin added, Our assumption was wrong. This place is much more dangerous now. You'd better leave. I'll stay here and continue the investigation, and I'll see you tomorrow morning. Walter and his men immediately left, but Russell couldn't just leave Jean behind. And to keep the kid safe, Jean told him about his beads, and promised him he'd be okay. You have the advantage, but the bead can only save his life once. You have to be as careful as possible. From Walter's helper, one leg left, From the time he screamed to the time he was eaten must have been some time. Then the phantom couldn't have killed the mercenary at the same time. Intensifying his search, Jin found Feng's body, but it hadn't been eaten yet. But there was a small hole dug near where he was lying, with a shovel beside it, which means he was the one who dug the hole. Penetrating underground, our hero saw the corpse of a ghost in a white shirt. And the interesting thing is, she had 6 fingers. But her mother and daughter didn't have that. It's weird. When suddenly this corpse opened its eyes, exclamation shit, she spotted Jean. Her eyes, very different from the eyes of a ghost. Perhaps it was a blue class item that was trying to get. Even if that's true, it's not important right now. It's about surviving. And figuring things out. In the first seconds of the fight, it was clear that it was going to be incredibly difficult to defeat her. Her true body is much stronger than her spiritual body. When suddenly the beads started glowing strangely, after which they activated their ultimatum ability. Apparently even one hit is enough to kill. It became clear to Jean very quickly that he had to get out of here now. He couldn't beat her now. But even with blue shoes, it's not easy to do that. The corpse of a girl turned out to be incredibly fast. She was not inferior to Jin in speed. It was only by getting out of the dungeon area that the genie managed to escape. But it's not a futile fight. The corpse of the girl in white is not Shu, but rather another person who was carried by the current. Perhaps Sue is still alive and lying somewhere downriver. Meanwhile, Russell and Walter were trying to contact our hero. But because of the interference of the dungeon, the radios didn't work. After waiting for the sun to rise, they decided to go to the house and look for him. But he wasn't in the house, not even any more signs that he was here. In other words, Jin just disappeared without leaving any trace. Suddenly, Shu's daughter came up to them and asked why they hadn't punished anyone yet, because it was already dawn. Realizing that the situation was out of control, Russell said they were about to leave for backup. But the girl was serious. She demanded that the military bring everyone to the river. Walter offered to help the girl, since they had no other leads. Gathering all the men from the list, Russell and Walter led them to the river, just as the girl wanted. The men begged the military to help them. They swore on their lives that they had nothing to do with Shu's death. But they were stumped, so they let the girl exact her revenge, hoping that would be the end of it. However, she didn't limit herself to just killing them. The girl cut out their tongues. Russell and the Walters were shocked at how bloodthirsty a little girl could be. Finished, she asked for help dumping the bodies into the river. After dumping all the bodies in the river, Russell asked the girl if she knew where her mom's body might be. "Oh, don't worry. Mom is already here, and she said you should die too." With an evil smile on her face, the girl replied. And at that moment, the girl who had been chasing Jin burst out of the river. But how did it happen since the sun had already risen? And moreover, they had gone outside the house. If our hero couldn't beat her, Russell and Walter don't stand a chance. But then the corpse activated a skill and started pulling people right into its mouth. First, she killed Walter's last man by unmasking his body. Realizing he'd be next, Russell decided to kill you himself. Anything's better than being eaten by a monster. Well, someone ripped the knife out of his hands before he could do anything. It was Jean. It's not the first time our hero has saved a guy from death. After which our hero attacked the woman's corpse and freed the boys from her captivity. "Come on," our hero said. "Rose, look who it is. Who is she carrying in her arms?" Mommy, you've come at last," Shu's daughter cried out with tears in her eyes. "It all makes sense now." At that moment, little Rose finally realized that she had died and become an evil spirit. But if Sue is alive, who is that woman in white? Russell asked in surprise. "Oh, it's a long and complicated story. Let's go back first and I'll tell you all about it," whispered Jin. But it didn't end there. The woman's corpse wanted to consume the body of Rose's mother. As the little girl got her memory back, she stood up for her mom. It's not every day you see two ghosts killing each other. And in the end, Rose emerged victorious. After which both spirits disappeared, so we can consider this dungeon passed. It was raining heavily that day, and Zhu accidentally fell into the water, but was rescued downstream. And Rose, searching for her mother, drowned in the river and unknowingly turned into a ghost. Her thirst for revenge was so strong that she began to influence the villagers. After Rose found the white-clothed corpse in the river, she thought it was her mother. That's roughly what happened. It explained a lot. That's how the ghosts killed 2 people at the same time. But worst of all, everyone Walter and Russell caught was innocent. For passing this dungeon, our hero received a rare and unique item. A ghost eye. This artifact gave the ability to receive information and clues from the system about things in the field of vision. The effect is a bit similar to the Feng ability. Most likely the mercenary wanted to obtain this class to enhance his ability. After it was over, Russell thanked Jin for his help, and Walter promised to give 10,000 credits to Feng. For passing this dungeon, our hero earned about 70,000 credits. But his strongest interest was the high-grade spiritual fruit, and unfortunately even the guys and their connections couldn't get him. The thing is, the military uses all the fruit to develop their project, and you can't just get it. It made some changes to Gene's original plan. After a little thought, he invited the boys and their parents to an interesting show tonight. Upon hearing this, the boys synchronously shouted out in surprise, "Show? That's it! And believe me, you have never seen such a show. It's called Zombie Horde Outbreak," replied our hero with a smile on his face. On his return home, Russell was met by his uncle. Naturally, the lad wondered why his father didn't meet him. Uncle Russell said his father had an emergency in the safe zone. By the way, Uncle Russell was a vice commander named Nix. It's not exactly what our hero wanted, but Nix wasn't the last man in the army either. So instead of his dad, Russell called his uncle for the evening show. Walter, on the other hand, was not so happily welcomed home. As we already know, his father was chairman of the largest trade association. Walter got a slap from his father for wanting to take some energy for now working for the army. And even the absence of a single fruit could cause a lot of trouble. And even though our hero kept Walter alive, his father couldn't make any concessions. But seeing how important it was for his son to thank his savior, the man said, "I'm not refusing to help him. We're just postponing this payment for a while. Especially since I don't know the guy personally, but if everything you said about him is true, I think I should talk to him. If it does turn out to be so strong, maybe I'll reconsider my opinion on energy fruits," added Samuel. After sunset, the promised show began. At that moment, our hero wrote a letter to Commander Xiao, warning that a wave of zombies was approaching the south wall. Last week, the commander had already received a similar letter from our hero, though he didn't believe it. But he took some measures just in case. But this time it's serious. Simon's team just spotted a break in the defensive line. And at that moment, the whole picture came together. The commander ordered the entire safe zone to be alerted and put on the defensive. The first thing the military did was evacuate the outer boroughs. After that, the bomb squad set up mine barriers to break through the mutant ranks for further attacks, while the rest of us were filling pre-prepared trenches with incendiary fluid. But even with all the preparations, our hero was sure that defending the safe zone would not be so easy. The thing is, all this is meant for normal zombies. Mutated mutants can easily overcome these barriers. There are only about 2,000 awakened in the entire area, 1,000 of whom are carrying guards, and there are only 600 on the front line, of which there are about 200 long-range combatants. Such a combat configuration is not unlike suicide. In a past life, it was like this, and all the defenders of the zone died. But this time it's going to be different because they have Gene. Minutes later, the Horde broke through the last line of defense and were heading towards the city. As planned, the first wave of monsters blew up in the minefields. If things were going okay on the ground, the battle in the air was almost lost. And after a few more minutes, the Horde broke through all the prepared minefields. The mutants were first encountered by the awakened members of the military. Russell, Walter, Nix, and Samuel were watching from the sidelines. Samuel and Nix wondered why Gene called them in and he doesn't fight. Walter's dad suggested that our hero was waiting for high-level monsters to show up to surprise them. Nix too, except they both thought our hero was just another idiot who wanted fame. "Hey, don't say that! We have a lot of respect for Mr., and believe me, he has something to surprise you with," Russell shouted indignantly. "I am sure of your choice, and when he returns I will speak to him, out of respect for you." "But I don't think he can surprise me," Nix replied. "You're too young. I can see why you're so surprised by third-level awakened. But you shouldn't idolize them," Samuel added. "All right, father. Let's just observe, and afterward we'll talk." "Disperse," she answered Walter. And by then, a monster at the peak of the second level showed up on the horizon, called Rotting Flesh. This mutant is good at both close combat and ranged combat. It would be impossible for ordinary soldiers to deal with such a mutant. So Commander Xiao personally entered the battle. As one of the strongest men in the safe zone, he can handle such mutants. Even the poisonous vapors emitted by Rotting Flesh are no threat to him. It would seem that with Commander Xiao, things should get better. But then the ground beneath my feet began to shake. Maybe an earthquake, but I don't believe in such coincidences. And a moment later, the earth began to crack at the seams, and an incredible grinding sound came from it. It was two mutants at the middle stage of the third level. Not even Commander Xiao could handle two at the same time. When suddenly there was a shout. Storm of swords. And the sky above the battlefield was filled with bright blue flashes of light. It was our hero who took out an armored mutant with one punch. Xiao couldn't believe his eyes when he saw it. "Oh, Commander Xiao, you're here too. What a nice meeting," Jin said with a smirk on his face. I apologize, but I missed a bit with my previous attack, so when I'm done with him, we'll talk, added our hero. Spending another S-rank skill was too reckless, so our hero decided to activate the Dragon Eyes Ultu, the Light of Heaven. It cost our hero almost half of all the reserves of spiritual energy, but the result was clearly worth it. Level 3 mutants turned into a pile of useless meat. It had only been 2 weeks since their last meeting. Xiao still couldn't believe that in that time, our hero had reached the 3rd level and surpassed him. I think the soldiers can take it from here. Come on, we have a lot to talk about, Jin said politely, but with a touch of sarcasm. But not only Xiao was amazed by our hero's abilities. Samuel and the Knicks were also thrilled. I agree, not every awakened man at the peak of the 3rd level is capable of such a thing, Samuel said in a trembling voice. I agree, he's as strong as even the Xiao commanders. I can see where the arrogance comes from, Nix added. When suddenly Russell got a letter from our hero that he was waiting for them in the courtroom. At the table, our hero takes the main seat, showing that he's in charge. After waiting for everyone, our hero said, I think you know each other, so I won't introduce you. Sit wherever you want, all of you. We have something to talk about. Xiao obviously didn't expect to find Nix and Samuel here. He thought they were our hero's sponsors. As they took their seats, the men began to praise Jean for a job well done. When all of a sudden Nix said, John, your strength is unbelievable. Even the elite soldiers of the army don't have such a thing. First of all, let me tell you that my name is not John, but Jean. Our hero replied with a smile on his face. And at this moment, Commander Xiao realized that Jin had achieved everything without anyone's help, for they didn't even know his name. The first thing our hero did was to ask Commander Xiao to provide him with a force-measuring apparatus, but the man felt it was unnecessary because they'd already seen what he could do. Seriously, Mr. Jin, did you think we didn't guess that you're in the middle stage of level 3? There's no need for a test, added Nix. But still, Jean insisted. Jean, did you really call us here to prove your power? Samuel asked. But in response, our hero just smiled. After a couple minutes, Xiao returned with a portable measuring force. With a hand, Jin began to infuse his spiritual energy. After a moment, the machine showed that Jin was at the peak of the 2nd level. What? How can this be? Everyone shouted in amazement. She thought the device was broken, but when he checked it, he realized there was no error. Nix and Samuel couldn't understand how our hero at the peak of level 2 had reached the strength, middle stage of level 3. And Xiao almost went crazy. It turns out that all the theories about someone being behind the genie were false. When you find out the truth, Russell, ask Jean how that's possible. I know it's hard to believe, but I'm actually level 2. Half a month ago, I was discovered to have a SS level talent, but because it was related to willpower, I was excluded from the project, replied Jin. Wait. With that talent, you've made it to the 2nd level of the peak stage in just 2 weeks? Samuel asked interruptively. They're assholes! They say there's no talent, to hell with them! Xiao shouted angrily. He remembered his conversation with the heads of the safe zones. Anyway, closer to the point, Jin was summoning them all to show their potential and find allies. I'm sure I can easily reach level 3. I want to completely change the military's attitude towards those awakened with the willpower talent. And those so-called project geniuses, I will wipe them into powder, making the whole world know who is worthy of the state's investment, Jin added. Nix wasn't opposed to becoming a sponsor, but he wondered how such power. Jin said that he has a unique ability that allows him to transform spiritual power into attack power. But he also mentioned a power that he couldn't talk about yet. Now that the situation is a little clearer to those around me, our hero has also proposed the creation of an alliance, of which he will be the head. This is a proposal for the future. After which, our hero gave them 10 minutes to discuss it. It was a risky proposition, however. Our hero knew that Xiao had been stuck at the initial stage of the 3rd level for many years. Nitz, although strong, would always be in the shadow of his brother and father. And Samuel was not satisfied with his superiors. For them, it was a chance to get out of the shadow of their illustrious relatives. But still they doubted. And considering that our hero was able to achieve such results so quickly on his own without anyone's help or funding, inclined them to respond positively. But on the other hand, if they formed an alliance led by a genie, they would become enemies of many high-ranking officials in the capital. They were in agreement that our hero's potential is amazing, but it's still an incredibly risky deal. Suddenly, Commander Xiao said, Perhaps your opinion of me will deteriorate sharply after this. But after hearing his proposal, I decided to take a chance. First of all, I don't want to repeat the previous mistakes. Secondly, a big gain always comes with a big risk. I've been stuck at my peak for a long time now, and there's nothing I can do about it. Dad, You always said the bigger the storm, the bigger the catch. Do you like being a substitute? Walter suddenly said. Uncle, since you came in place of your father and grandfather, you get to make the decisions. I'm sure they will agree with any choice you make, Russell added. After exactly 10 minutes of heated discussion, Jean returned to the boardroom. After weighing the risks, they've decided to agree to an alliance. Jin was happy with this outcome. After that, he gave Samuel a list of things he needed, and asked Nix to contact the top leadership of the capital, since he wanted to go to the third-level trials. After looking at the list of necessities, the man promised to get At this point, the man felt sad that the new generation had surpassed him. Our hero finally got what he wanted. He has some of the most important people in North and South China on his side. News of the formation of the new alliance quickly reached the leadership of the capital. This time, they were no longer discussing whether our hero deserved any privileges. This time, they were discussing how they could get Jean on their side. Colonel Cleo, and part-time head of the secret project, proposed to give our hero a special title of lineage. But for that, he needed General Yang's permission. But all the general said in response was, Cleo, it's your fault. We missed Jin last time and now you're trying to restart things. The problem was that General Chan's son was now first in line for reinforcement through the program. But he still hadn't reached level 2 peak, unlike our hero. So the general now faces a difficult choice. He realized that with his current level of strength, our hero would easily rise to the 3rd level, and then the general's son would lose priority. In the end, the council made a decision. They give the bottom exactly 3 days to get it up to level 3. But if that doesn't happen, the first priority will remain with General Chang's son. And of course, Chan found out about it. But our hero wasn't the only one with an ultimatum. Max needed to reach level 2 peak in 3 days. Chan, although he loved his son, but he understood that if our hero reached the 3rd level, it would be more appropriate to prioritize him. Father told Max that his position was very precarious now that there was a new talent. It was for this reason that the general wanted Max to reach level 2 peak as soon as possible to catch up with our hero. Max needed to max out his current level to begin with, and then his father would help him pass the level up test, and that way they were going to keep his spot. And besides, no one in Jin's capital knows, and the way here is very dangerous. Meanwhile, in a safe zone far from the capital, our hero, enjoying the fruits of his new alliance. Samuel was able to get the required amount of fruit and even a Class A skill book. This book alone could bankrupt an entire city. The first thing Gina decided to do was to raise all his stats to the max. After eating all the energy fruits, our hero finally raised all his stats to 31. After that, our hero felt an incredible burst of strength, and the streams of spiritual energy inside his body began to move faster. Now, it's time to learn a new sword skill, Sword Breakthrough. A super powerful blow causing heavy damage to the target, accompanied by the effects of execution, paralysis, and crushing. Immune to all controls during the execution of the skill, additionally receives an increase in defense by 200%. What was expected from a skill of this level? Enhanced attack and defense at the same time. But that's not all. The Sword God system improved Sword Breakthrough to SSS-Rank. Now he's on to the strongest new skill in his arsenal, Falling Skies. Effect number 1. Soaring to the sky, you can choose any target within 1 kilometer to capture. Once captured, the target will be bounded, gains an instant hit effect. After a quick descent, it deals area damage, causing critical damage to the target. Effect number 2. Immune to all controls. While the skill is in effect, additionally gains a spiritual shield that compensates for the amount of damage equal to your reserve spiritual power. As long as the target's willpower is lower than yours, they cannot attack you. You become the god of death. From the description, this skill doesn't have a single weakness. But there was one problem. The skill window was filled to the max, so Jin would only be able to use Falling Skies after reaching level 3. As suddenly, our hero received a system assignment. He had to collect 4 rare materials and use them, and as a reward, he'll be able to merge skills. And the recharge of SSS-Rank skills will be halved. Seldom does the Sword God system give any quests, but the reward is simply awesome. But there was a problem getting the necessary materials. The Mountain Destroyer. It's a mutant at the peak of level 3 that only appeared once, 27 years ago. He was killed by several awakened at the peak of the 3rd level. And about other materials, our hero and never heard of at all, most likely it is ancient and incredibly valuable relics. The only way to get those artifacts is to get them from the National Treasure Trove. When suddenly, Xiao came into the room, saying that there was news from the capital. The top brass will send men to escort our hero to the capital. Whereupon, our hero asked if they had given him a priority title. But what all he replied was that they hadn't made a final decision yet. Jin understood their fears, after all. He was the first person in history with this kind of talent to achieve this level of strength. When Xiao suddenly said, "Jin, I understand your eagerness, but General Chang and his son have serious connections in the capital. Why don't we wait for a while? I understand your apprehension. I myself do not want to spoil relations with them. But we cannot wait so long," answered our hero. "Besides, I have good reasons for hurrying, which I can't tell you yet," added the lad. Although our hero was hiding his true goals from everyone, but Commander Xiao was confident in him and was ready to support him whatever he did. The next day, the capital's warships came for our hero. Their level of weaponry was simply amazing. If they wanted to, they would turn any city into ruin in a matter of minutes. Accompanying our hero on his way to the capital will be an elite security detail, every member of which was a third-level awakened one. Xiao, as the head of the zone was supposed to do, was the first to greet the guests, but in return for his friendliness, they just ignored him and walked past him as if he didn't even exist. Even though he was hurt, he realized that to them he was just an ordinary loser. Approaching our hero, one of the guys introduced himself, the commander of the 27th Air Squadron, Colonel Jean. Our hero introduced himself in return. Conversing with him, he behaved calmly and confidently. Then Jean said, "Jean, let's not waste time and let's go." After meeting our hero, the colonel realized, but he did not think that the general would go to such measures. In the year, realizing what was going on, our hero presented the blade to the first pilot and said, "I see the plane is not all that bad. Just someone doesn't know how to fly it. I think if we crash, General Chang won't like it, so stand back and I'll drive." Realize they've been figured out, Jean let our hero here take the helm. Fortunately, in a previous life, our hero had already commanded such warships. Engineers made the controls as simple as possible. Jean marveled at how decisive our hero approached to the case. Our hero has a great future ahead of him. So he decided to go to his side. A couple hours later, they successfully arrived in the capital. General Yang, who was in charge of the project, personally came to greet our hero. The general, like Jean, invited our hero to a banquet. But as before, Jin first wanted to pass the level up test, which surprised the generals. "The reason why you have now placed me in a special order and not in the first is because you have not seen me in battle. So I want to pass the test now," added our hero. These words caused General Yang to respect, and the other man realized that Max wouldn't make it to peak level 2 in time, and Jin would take his place. And since both of these men were good friends of Chan, they suggested that the genie rest today and begin the test tomorrow. Our hero perfectly understood that they are just trying to delay time, but nevertheless decided to agree with them, because he could use a rest. Of course, General Chang didn't like the news. The man is unhappy that General Yang was able to stall for just one night. But there, the bad news for him did not end there. The men told Chan that Colonel Jean was no longer on their side. For the general, this was the worst news of all, for he had prepared some surprise for our hero in the dungeon. Meanwhile, our hero has already settled into his apartment. His special status allowed him to be energized by spirit crystals. But that's just the beginning. Once he gets priority status, he'll get 1 million credit points every month, and he'll also be able to get a customized set of blue gear. With that kind of support, it'll take him just under a year to reach level 4. The next morning, our hero and a few other aspirants prepared to begin the ordeal. Jean found it amusing that everyone but him was a very grown man. Jin realized that this was another setup from General Chang. The man hoped that against the background of the more experienced awakened ones, our hero's accomplishments would not be so significant, and the military leadership will reject our hero's candidacy. Before the trial began, General Yang asked the strength of the participants on the ground, when suddenly there was a shout, "Wait, sir, I'm still here." A moment later, Max appeared in the arena, covered in scrapes and abrasions. The genie couldn't help but notice that the guy had just returned from the dungeon, though the genie had no beef with him, but he was serious. Which could not be said about Max. Because of the rush, the guy lost in the dungeon several partners of the 3rd level, and he blamed it on our hero. As all participants were in place, the test began. The first stage was of the power type. Participants needed to climb to the 10th floor to qualify for the promotion. The higher the floor, the greater the reward. Moreover, if they can make it to the world ranking, they will receive special awards. Representatives from China ranked only 7th. Jin thought it was a shame and wanted to rectify the situation. Max was the first to be tested, and following him, 2 more awakened ones with a talent for strength and agility, who had clearly been hired by Chan. And last in the group, our hero volunteered. He surprised the people around him. Ian reminded our hero that this was a power test, and suggested he wait, a test that was more suited to his talent. "Mr. Yang, am I correct in understanding that the rules prohibit me from participating?" If not, then please continue, Jin replied politely. When General Chong heard that, he said, "He's not so stupid." "What do you mean?" the man sitting next to him asked in surprise. "Everyone knows that the third-level test of the will system is the most difficult in history. And with his stats, he may well make it to the 10th floor on this test," Chan replied. When suddenly Max came up to our hero and started provoking him in every possible way. But our hero, not so easy, and insulting him won't accomplish anything. The biggest problem with passing this test was that all equipment boosts and bonuses were disabled. But Jin's basic skills are more than enough to get to the 10th floor. But his goal was to reach the 24th floor. Such a result would allow him to take a leading position in the world ranking. The first few floors are just a warm-up. You can go through quickly without wasting energy. The first 2 floors, our hero just ran, mashing mutants on his way. The first 7 floors are pretty easy. The difference will become apparent at least after the 7th or even the 10th floor. While everyone was plus-minus on the same level, Max had already made it to the 10th floor. So far, our hero has only been on the 8th floor. But speed is not a key factor in this challenge. However, it may affect the final top management choice. To rush is to quickly exhaust your energy. And Jin understood this perfectly well, while everyone was rapidly expending energy on the initial floors. Our hero was thinking ahead. Due to the strong mutants emitting a magnetic field, all video feeds stop after the 10th floor. But nevertheless, the floor the man is on is still showing. And so far, Max was ahead of the curve. Compared to the General's son, our hero's results seem insignificant. They even drew laughter from many. As I said before, speed had an effect. General Yang was disappointed with the genie's success. Also, Chan with his comments reinforced the doubts. The man understood that our hero had no talent for strength. But he didn't understand why he was progressing so slowly with such basic characteristics. Jin knew there would be misunderstandings because of his speed, but he also knew that the final result was far more important than the intermediate result. While Max was mindlessly spending a huge amount of power on weak monsters, our hero was looking for their weaknesses to spend a minimum of energy. Jin had reached the 12th floor without using attribute conversion, and his spiritual strength and stamina were still full. But on the following floors it will not be enough. The main thing is not to spend SSS-Rank skills until the 21st floor. And meanwhile, Max had already completed the passage of the 16th floor. But unlike our hero, he had almost no strength left. And most of the contestants left the dungeon altogether. And at that moment, General Yang's opinion began to shift in our hero's favor. At this moment, Chan said, "I admit, this kid is not as bad as I thought, but compared to my son, he is just pathetic." I wouldn't jump to conclusions. Max has slowed down a lot after the 15th floor, and Jin is still moving forward. I'd even say he's accelerated, Yang replied after hearing Chan's words. And while they were talking, our hero went to the 16th floor, thereby catching up with Max. And a couple minutes later, Jin had already gone to the 17th floor. Meanwhile, the guy was still trying to defeat the floor boss, but rushing through the initial floors, he used up too much energy, which led to a very expected result. Plus, right before the challenge started, he was in a dungeon where he was also trying hard. Fully convinced of his superiority, Max decided to leave the dungeon. But before that, he decided to finish the 18th floor, using the rest of his strength for one last attack. He killed a giant skeleton with one punch, after which, disconnected from the dungeon. Upon his return, his father came running up to him asking how he was feeling. "Dad, I made it to the 18th floor. I'm the first!" Max shouted happily, but all he saw in response was his father's sad face. The guy didn't realize what was going on because he had the best Chinese result in decades. But a glance at the competitors' table told him everything. A few seconds before his exit, Jin crossed to the 19th floor, when all of a sudden, the guy started coughing up blood. Max refused to believe it. He was sure there had been some kind of mistake, but there was no mistake. Chan personally checked everything several times. After being silent for a while, Max whispered, "So those uncles sacrificed themselves in vain? Son, don't doubt yourself. You've come an incredible way in just a few days. I am proud of you," Chan replied confidently. And meanwhile our hero was already on the 20th floor. General Yang ordered Vice Commander Fan, who was ranked 7th in the world rankings, to be notified. Yan wanted Xia to personally see it with his own eyes. Getting to the 24th floor isn't as easy as it sounds, because from the 20th floor, all the third-ranked monsters, without the use of SSS-Rank skills and gear enhancement, even a genie will have a hard time dealing with them alone. Fortunately, he still has enough spiritual energy to convert it into agility. By increasing his speed, he became faster than the mutant. But passively running away was not his goal. We have to go on the offensive. Jin was well aware that it was impossible to defeat a monster without taking damage. The first order of business is to take away the mutant's greatest advantage. And with this mutant, it's spraying venom. Converting a few points of spiritual energy into strength, Jin cut off the mutant's tentacles. It wasn't enough. Even though the monster can no longer use the poison, he's still alive. The problem was that our hero couldn't convert spiritual energy into strength and agility at the same time. But luckily, that wasn't required this time. Without its main advantage, the monster became less dangerous, so Jin chose the right moment and cut off its head. This time, defeating a level 3 mutant was no problem. Starting from the next floor, Jin can already use his SSS-Rank skills. Meanwhile, Deputy Commander Fang and Committee Member Hu arrived at the range. Ian quickly brought them up to speed. After learning that Jin had moved to the 22nd floor, Fang smilingly said, "Good for you. He can keep going. He's a rising star. Already, with these stats, our hero is 3rd in the world rankings." At one point, the commander became so agitated that he lost control of his spiritual energy. But fortunately, General Yang brought him to his senses in time. Commander Fan, as well as everyone else, was interested in why our hero was so slow on the initial floors, while on the more difficult levels he needed less than a minute. When suddenly Hu said, "I heard that he specializes in willpower." Could there be something wrong with this information? Because some people are willing to do dirty deeds for power, the committee member added, looking toward General Chong's mercenaries. I agree, in normal times you could forgive minor machinations, but if someone dares to hand over the country, I will personally finish him off. Fan replied angrily, looking at Chan and Max. The general, although he was a very vile person, but he wasn't a fool, and would never dare to go against Fan. After our hero crossed to the 22nd floor, everyone expected his imminent exit. After all, he couldn't use the equipment bonus in the trial, and everyone thought that was where it stopped. But no. Meanwhile, Jin was single-handedly slaughtering level 3 mutants, and after another 10 seconds he crossed to the 23rd floor. Used to be the all-time world record for passing this test. Even Hu, despite all his skepticism, admitted that Jin was incredible. And at that moment, Chan and Max realized that they could forget about the first priority. Fang and Hu were overwhelmed with pride that it was their country that had the strongest awakened one of all time. After which Fang ordered to report it to the Supreme Commander, so that he could make sure of it perfectly. Expecting that Jin would definitely come out of the ordeal this time, Fang, Hu, and Yan decided to meet him right at the exit. No matter how long they waited, our hero never came out. Fang, more than anyone else, understood how dangerous it was to continue this ordeal. So he asked General Yang to contact the genie and order him out. The general replied that the communication didn't work on high floors. The only thing they could do was pray that our hero would be okay. After all, the ordeal is set up in such a way that even if they wanted to, they couldn't help. And after only 10 seconds of their prayers being answered, Jin decided to complete the challenge. But instead of our hero, they only got notices about it. Fang had a logical question. Where is he? After thinking for a while, General Yang said in a trembling voice, "No way." He had applied for the next round of the agility test. Meanwhile, our hero was preparing for a new challenge. Since the current result already guaranteed him the first place in the world ranking, he decided that there was no point in continuing, and thus he retained 2 SSS-Rank skills. In addition, in the 3rd level trials, there is a hidden rule. If the awakened person passes the trials in a row, the result is summed up. The second round tested the dexterity of the awakened. The success of the passage is determined by speed, although there are monsters in this maze, but the main goal is to get to the exit as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, at the other end of the maze, a girl named Lena was studying for a test. Her primary talent was agility, which means she'll be tested at the same time as our hero. Considering all the peculiarities of the labyrinth, she chose the most reliable tactic, moving along the right wall. Although it is not the shortest path, but on it will be caught a minimum number of mutants. And given her agility skills, dodging their attacks should be a breeze. But our hero chose a completely different tactic. The most important criterion for him was to get into the world ranking, so he took the shortest route, which was swarming with mobs of high-ranking mutants. Although he didn't possess any special agility skills, but his combat experience allowed him to easily dodge their attacks and not get involved in the fight. Besides, Jin had the perfect plan. He wanted to get to the center of the maze, then use the dimension cut and teleport straight to the exit. Meanwhile, Lena has fallen into a trap. A giant demonic octopus blocked her path, and to get through it, the girl had to activate one of her strongest skills, Wind Gust. But the surprises didn't end there. The demonic squids turned out to be 2, and the effects of the Wind Gust have worn off and she won't be able to use it anytime soon. But luckily, she was able to dodge his attack, though she took some damage. Meanwhile, our hero has already reached the center of the labyrinth, but here he found himself completely trapped. But given his plan, it's totally irrelevant. As he got closer to the mutants, he activated the dimension slit to carry out his plan for life. Unlike the strength test, the agility test did not have a live broadcast or ranking table. Therefore, the people in the arena had no idea what was going on inside the arena. The more talented a man is, the more pride he has, and the more fragile he becomes when he fails, I'm afraid. I understand your fears, but Jin has a talent for willpower, and it shouldn't happen to him, replied John. After losing to our hero, Max had hoped that he would fail this test, when suddenly, an announcement was made. A contestant named Jin had completed the second round of the challenge by completing the maze in 1 minute and 8 seconds. And once again, our hero has set a new world record, proving his strength once again. And about a minute later, Lena emerged from the ordeal. Her time is 2 minutes and 1 second. And when she came out of the maze, she saw that she was the only one who came out, and she thought she'd gone the fastest. With this result, the girl realized that she was unlikely to get into the top 10, but then she decided to look at the rankings table, and what a surprise it was when she saw she'd lost to the genie by a huge margin. Meanwhile, Supreme Commander Lee has arrived at the arena. The fan reported to the Commander-in-Chief that our hero had broken the world record again, but this time in the agility test. The man wanted to talk to our hero, but the fan said that he decided to continue the test, to which the Commander-in-Chief demanded that he be immediately disconnected from the system. This order caused a real shock to everyone around. Oh my god, why are you so scared? I was just kidding. This guy is obviously a phenomenon, so let's just watch him, Lee added with a loud laugh. Fan knew the Commander-in-Chief had a peculiar sense of humor, but I didn't think he would joke at such an important moment. Meanwhile, our hero was preparing for the third round of the test of endurance. In this challenge, you cannot attack monsters, you can only defend. The more damage dealt per unit of time, the higher the score. Of course, the challenge is divided into different zones, depending on the strength of the monsters, and the challenge itself lasts for 10 minutes. In other words, to get a good result, you need to actively go into areas of high complexity. After converting his willpower points into agility, Jin swiftly began to make his way deep into the dungeon. The biggest problem was the lack of long-lasting defense skills. Only the heavenly defense skill, which lasted for a few seconds. At this time, in the arena, Li and Fang were speculating whether our hero would be able to top the rankings in this challenge as well. They wanted to believe it, but the reality was quite different. The talent of endurance stood out among the other talents, and it was instantly recognizable by its bearer. In general, the fan doubted it. However, Li was confident in our hero, and even more so, the Commander-in-Chief thought that our hero could immediately become a candidate for the title of 4th level heroes. Meanwhile, our hero has already reached the area with level 2 monsters. And the monsters here are much stronger than in the initial stages, so just dodging their attacks is not so easy. In addition, fatigue from the previous rounds began to take its toll. That led to our hero falling into a trap, and because of his wounds, Jin could no longer use his left arm. So he decided to immediately retreat to the field safe zones to come up with a new plan. Climbing a small hill, he saw a huge corpse elephant on the horizon. This monster was quite slow, but had an incredibly huge amount of damage that it dealt with its proboscis. And the genie had the idea to use this mutant as a catapult that would throw him to the right place. It was an incredibly risky idea, but if successful, it would produce the necessary results. Seconds before the attack, our hero converted over 100 points of spiritual energy into defense. And it worked. Jin landed right in the 3rd level peak mutant zone. Being here, our hero was well aware that if he missed even one blow, he would surely die. The mutant our hero was lucky enough to meet was a huge sandworm. Jin didn't know how strong the defense against Heaven's Fall was, so he immediately decided that he would exit the dungeon in case, waiting for the sandworm to go on the offensive. Activated the defense mode of the SSS-Rank skill, Heaven Fall. In the skill description said that the protective barrier is able to withstand an attack that is 10 times greater than the attack of the owner. Fortunately, it was more than enough to withstand the attack of a level 3 peak mutant. On top of that, the sandworm performed its attack non-stop, which improved the final results of the challenge. As suddenly the protective barrier, the fall of the heavens, began to weaken. By this point, Jin's result had already surpassed the previous world record, and after a few more seconds, the defense barrier was completely destroyed. But our hero calculated everything perfectly, and the moment he was left unprotected, the test time expired. Having passed 3 rounds in a row, our hero decided not to stop there and passed the 4th round at once. Its result, 1.74 tons of block damage. Yes, don't be surprised, block damage is measured in tons. Li, Fun, Hu, and Yang were speechless. They saw, but did not yet believe that our hero had broken all 3 world records. When suddenly Supreme Commander Li said, "I think there's something wrong with this guy. Maybe he's not a human being at all, but a demigod." "You're too tense. I was just kidding," the Commander-in-Chief added with a laugh. Jin, meanwhile, was resting and gaining strength before the test of wills began, though he lost the ability to work his left arm in the previous round. But luckily, the test of willpower doesn't include fighting skills. Before starting, the system asked you to select a test type. The first type is the most commonly chosen method of testing the will, and it is also the method Jin chose in his past life. But now all his skills are on cooldown and he can't fight with his left hand, so he's left with a special challenge to choose from. Immediately after selecting the type of test, the system transported our hero to the military headquarters of the safe zone. The feeling of being here was incredibly realistic. First, our hero met Commander Xiao, who asked him to help fight the mutants. Plus, when Xiao wanted to touch our hero, he dodged and politely declined. Not knowing what was going on, the man asked the genie what was wrong, after which our hero stabbed Xiao through with the dragon eye. Although it's hard to distinguish truth from lies, in this special challenge, Jin must be careful. And this time, his intuition didn't fail him. Xiao was indeed the monster of this trial. Even though this time it was pretty easy, but you should never relax. The next memory our hero fell into was a dungeon walk with Russell and Scarlet. Russell asks Jean for help. They say the monster has taken his sister hostage. Just like last time, our hero made a huge hole in the guy's chest. Though this time the system made Russell more believable, but it failed to lead the genie astray. Thus our hero has successfully passed the 2nd round. The next memory was a dungeon with Alice and her blood wolves. Perhaps for many this level is very difficult, but for a genie it's even easier than the previous 2. After all, he can kill Alice with a clear conscience. It seems that in this test, the system has clearly underestimated the capabilities of our hero. In the next round, our hero faced Evelyn Parker. Here, unlike in real life, the girl did what she promised. It was the system's way of trying to keep Jin's attention. Even though it was just a simulation created by the system, even here, Jin showed respect. Closing her eyes, he did what he had to do. Even though it was strange, he was glad to see Evelyn. But the next recollection was very different from all the previous ones. It was from a past life, back when Jin was in high school, is the only memory that made him doubt himself. That day, he remembered perfectly, but never recalled. Because then, his teacher and all his classmates died. He was the only survivor. That time was also the last time he saw his childhood friend Vicky. They had been good friends as children, both growing up in a poor neighborhood and in a poor family, and always sharing with each other. When suddenly Vicky said, "Jean, I'm scared. You'll protect me, won't you? Take me to the safe place." This dungeon wasn't much different from the others in terms of difficulty, but it played heavily on our hero's senses. He had dreamed all his life of going back to that day and fixing everything, but now he realized it was just an illusion. With tears in his eyes, Gina lunged at Vike and started choking him. After finishing what he started, our hero became hysterical and screamed, "Damn system! Why are you doing this to me?" But unfortunately, it didn't end there. You had to kill all the classmates to pass the challenge. After killing everyone he cared about, Jean hated himself more than ever. But the brutal next recollection has crossed every conceivable measure of tolerance. Friendship, love, will he have to forfeit his family ties in the 6th round? Is a flashback from a past life when Jean's mom died. Is the day Lisa was the only person in his life he cared about. Now, our hero understood why most of the awakened found the ordeal impossible. While our hero tried to dare to murder his own sister, she didn't wait a second, and with her bare hand, made a huge hole in Jean's stomach. And even after that, the guy still had a hard time deciding to kill Lisa, but an acute sense of pain quickly reminded him of where he was and why he was here. Putting all feelings aside, he sliced Lisa's small and frail body in half. This round was the hardest of all, and to fully complete this challenge to the end, you have to go one more round. As suddenly our hero felt a strange sensation and a sharp pain in his chest, after which his breathless body fell to the ground like a stone. Finding himself in the void, Jin tried to figure out what was happening to him. Feelings and surroundings said only one thing, that he died. But after a while, he woke up in a hospital bed surrounded by uniformed men. Where am I? What happened to me? Wasn't I at the will test? Our hero asked with the last of his strength. You did it. You passed out right after breaking through to level 4. We were all so worried. It's good that you woke up. "Now we have hope," replied one of the people present. Those words opened his eyes. He was back in his past life, before the capital was overrun. His left arm had fully recovered, and his life was intact. Moreover, the energy in his body became stronger than ever. But a soldier comes into the chamber and reports that the defensive line at the walls of the capital is about to fall. Right now, our hero only cares about one question. Is it real? Then, he encountered a level 4 mutant, and the last thing he remembered was dying. So what if he didn't die then, and someone was able to save him? Most likely after returning, someone had forcibly smashed his will core, thus saving his life and raising his level to level 4. That's the question. Why didn't he remember any of this? Maybe it's a side effect of being promoted to level 4. Was the rebirth really just a dream he had seen while unconscious? That big dream confused his current memories. All this confused the genies even more. Now they know where the truth is and where the lies are. Either way, panicking won't help. Our hero decided to figure things out before taking any action. For starters, we need to get out of this room to understand what's going on. On the streets, it was chaos. The capital was about to go. The only safe place in town was an underground shelter. But even getting there was already incredibly difficult, with mutants flying all over the city, and the morale of the men was completely crushed. Some of the awakened deserted and tried to hide in a shelter. Plus, murderers and looters started to hit the streets. But luckily, it didn't last long. Back on the battlefield, Jin's first order of business was to secure escape routes. Not only from monsters, but also from humans. Although it's still unclear if it's real, but our hero couldn't stand idle. While the defense forces tried to keep the enemy at bay, Jin decided to sweep the city clean of the monsters that had already infiltrated. His new level 4 strength felt incredibly natural and powerful. He now felt that he could single-handedly destroy an entire army. About the safety of the city, our hero decided to go to the front lines to help ordinary soldiers. To be honest, things were going unbelievably bad. The difference in strength was simply colossal, for one soldier taught about 30 mutants. Despite the colossal losses, the soldiers continued to fight, trying to take as many mutants as possible with them to the other world, while ordinary soldiers defended the walls of the city. The top military brass decided to eliminate the biggest threat, a level 4 mutant. Many of them knew they were going to their deaths, but they didn't know that mankind still had a genie that could bring justice. They didn't know that our hero just hours ago came out of a coma and is already fighting the others. They realized that they couldn't kill the monster, but even if they managed to seriously injure it, it could change everything. Seeing the greatest 7 heroes of mankind fight, it raised the morale of everyone else. Hope, that's what everyone was missing right now. This monster is the strongest they've ever faced, and they didn't know what he was capable of. So their attack was completely useless, and the monster in turn grabbed all the greatest warriors of the land in a matter of seconds. That's how big the gap in their strength was. And a moment later, the mutant turned them into lifeless piles of bones. When the ordinary soldiers saw this, they were speechless. The strongest of men had just died in front of their eyes. At which point, there was silence in the executive office. General Chu, who was serving as commander-in-chief at the time, realized that this was the end. Chu, I wanted to address all of humanity one last time and thank everyone for their contribution to this war. But then, their radar picked up an incredibly strong burst of spiritual energy resembling human energy. Of course, that man was Jin, in whose hands lay the fate of all mankind. Our hero knew what this mutant was capable of, and with new powers, he has a chance at victory. When the soldiers saw Jin, the soldiers were revitalized. Pressured by the awakened level 4, most of the zombies began to retreat. But here was a level 4 mutant just standing there and watching. Besides, the genie still wasn't sure it was real. And if it's all an illusion and just one of the trials, what does he have to do to complete it? Kill a level 4 mutant and get rid of his obsessive thoughts about his past life? Regardless of whether it's a trial or not, if Jin kills a mutant with a single sword strike, the regret in his heart should subside. When suddenly the boy heard familiar voices calling him. He turned around and saw his mother and sister asking him to defeat the mutant so they could live happily ever after. But it didn't end there. Moments later, his ex-girlfriend showed up, promising that she would come back to him if he won. That was a major flaw in the system. For now, Jin was fully convinced that this was just part of the test of willpower. Looking at the dragon eye, the guy said, "I get it. Since everyone wants to end it, let's end it." Meanwhile, back in the real world, everyone was waiting for our hero to make it. Since the test of wills began, it had been over 9 hours. Commander-in-Chief Lee feared that something had happened to Jin. Everyone had their own guesses about what was going on there and why the guy was there for so long. In any case, they were sure he was still alive, so the Commander-in-Chief suggested they wait some more. Well, Chan was of a different opinion. Though he didn't like our hero much, he understood his value to the country like everyone else. He had a theory that would explain everything that happened. Descending from the podium, the general said, "Lee, you will be able to give the highest order to shut down all means of communication. It is necessary to ensure that information does not leak out. In fact, all the people here must be subjected to level 1 control," Chan added. "What are you really saying?" "The isolation prices of so many people," replied the fan angrily. "Commander-in-Chief, if what I say is not so important, and I am ready to take the blame and resign," General Chan added. It was still unclear what exactly the man was trying to accomplish, but the commander-in-chief was clearly interested. After some thought, Lee ordered the area to be secured and put into top-secret mode. After making sure that his words would be kept secret, General Jung said, "I believe that Jin was able to rank first in the world in the 3 systems solely because he found a vulnerability in the system, not because he is strong." "Chan, you're just jealous that your son isn't as talented," Fang replied rudely. "How else do you explain that it takes him so long to pass the tests of willpower? Don't think it's impossible." "Remember what happened 16 years ago," added Chan, "was once a North American awakening, whose talent for temporarily replicating system objects. Although the copied items had no effect, they were accepted by NPCs in dungeons. Thanks to this ability, he practically went through all the main dungeons and obtained a huge amount of resources, until he accidentally revealed his true power and the system destroyed him. Since then, people have realized that even an almost divine system can actually make mistakes. In this situation, General Chang's theory sounded very logical, and the general wanted to interrogate Jin right after he left the trial. And if they were sure he was honest, they'd give him the title he'd earned. Fang disagreed with that. He thought it was too early to draw any conclusions while Jin was inside. "But the commander-in-chief has the final say. They'll do as he decides." Meanwhile, Jin was trying to solve the mystery of getting through the last round. The doubts were too many, and the temptation to stay in this world too great. Even if the past or the future is beautiful, Jin didn't want to live in false illusions. So he made the hardest choice of his life and killed himself. Our hero realized that the real cruelty and difficulty was real, and he would come face to face with it again and again, trying to change it. Because only looking forward is the present. He who lives in the past has no future. There's no denying that he failed terribly in his past life, though he is still afraid to fail again. But this time, he'll do whatever it takes to win. In the moments before his breathless body tumbled downward, the test of willpower was complete. Reward: for the world record, our hero received an addition to all his characteristics, and now all his attributes amount to 68 points instead of 31. The next reward was to increase all stats by another 10 points and enhance all available talents. Jin also received 4,000 points, and the title of winner, which exempts him from system trade fees and gives him class, privileges, as well as 40 blue items to choose from, 1 epic item to choose from, an epic elixir of regeneration, and a magical time key. And lastly, the new SS willpower skill, rank Storm of Spirits. After receiving the highest honor in all of humanity's time, Jin finally emerged from the ordeal. Upon seeing our hero, the commander-in-chief shouted with delight, "Out! He is the only one who has passed the test of the 3rd level of willpower." After all the ordeal, Jin could barely stand on his feet and was waiting for the global announcement. A moment later, the whole world found out that a guy named Jin had taken all the first places in all the 3rd level raising trials. This news has caused a lot of discussion around the world. After all, China had never been so strong before. Being completely exhausted, Jin slumped to the ground and whispered, "Damn system, I almost died." After which, a team of medics rushed to examine him. Fortunately, the doctors found nothing serious, only a slight fracture of the left arm, and great exhaustion of physical and spiritual strength. "A couple days of REM sleep and you'll be fine." Except that General Chang wanted to wake the genie with psychic power and interrogate him, which made Fang very angry. The relationship between the men had not been warm before. The other members of the group also stood up for our hero, arguing that they had no evidence of the system's error. Commander-in-Chief Lee was in agreement with this. He decided to wait 3 days for Jin to recover, and then already talk to him. Against the Commander-in-Chief's word, the VAT could not go. However, hope did not lose. However, he did not lose hope. In just 3 days, China was approached by 117 countries with questions about Jin. And in the meantime, our hero still hasn't come out of his coma. Chong said, "Commander-in-Chief, the best doctors in China say his vitals are normal and his wounds are healed. Obviously, he doesn't want to wake up because of a guilty conscience. I suggest we wake him up immediately."
You're at it again! Just touch him! I'll rip your arm off! Fan shouted loudly.
Close the lines. If we shout like this, we'll definitely miss something important, replied Commander-in-Chief Lee. After which, Chan ordered the mental interrogation equipment to be brought in. It's a special device that allows you to penetrate a person's mind with spiritual power and communicate with them. Fan was against the idea. He persuaded the Commander-in-Chief to wait some more time. Lee didn't want to do it himself, but now it's a matter of national security. That's why they have no other choice. For too long, they can't get answers to their questions. Chan was incredibly happy that the Commander-in-Chief agreed with his idea, for he was sure that Jin was a fraud. But the moment the general put the helmet on our hero, he woke up, and the first thing he asked was, where is he, and what happened to him? Everyone was insanely glad that he was awake and wouldn't have to do this horrible interrogation. Ordered Jin to be disconnected from the machine immediately. The fan, not thinking long, tossed it aside, ran up to our hero and introduced himself. After which, he introduced everyone else except Zhang. Taking the helmet off his head, our hero said, "What's this? Doesn't look like medical equipment, right? It doesn't matter now, because you're awake. We want to ask you a few things too. What's your talent? Can you open the system panel so we can take a look?" Hu asked. At that moment, our hero realized they doubted his results. Too bad he can't reveal his sword system. After thinking for a bit, Jin asked Commissioner Hu, "Since when did the military require the presentation of system windows from the awakened ones?" Hu obviously didn't expect such a question, and became visibly nervous. "Don't be rude, kid. We suspect that you've somehow managed to cheat. It's a very serious matter. We hope that you will definitely cooperate, and don't try to hide anything," General Chang added. Jean suspected there might be such questions, but still hoped it wouldn't happen. Seeing our hero's hostility, Fang tried to prove that they were friends. When suddenly the commander said with his hand on his heart, "Jin, we really appreciate you winning this title for China. Even if you cheated and tell about it, we will not punish you, but only reward you and keep you in the first echelon." When General Chang heard this, he was shocked. The sight of such privileges was not given even to his son. The man was convinced that our hero was a fraud, and near the fact that instead of punishment, the Commander-in-Chief wanted to reward him. In fact, our hero understood their worries perfectly well and would have done exactly the same thing together. But still, he wanted a different reception. Jin agreed to tell them everything, but asked for one favor. He needed a crystal to test the top-level talent. So Jin can show his true power without having to open system windows. Chan realized that even with the SS level, it was simply impossible to achieve such results. So the power readings through the crystal were just a pathetic attempt to save himself. Seeing the smirk on General Chang's face, our hero said, "After I finish testing, if you still have any questions, then we'll talk then." A couple minutes later, Fan returned with a crystal to measure top-level talent. The genie had nothing to fear, for he did not exploit any vulnerabilities in the system, only his skills. When he put his hand on this crystal, the guy felt an incredible power. Just like the last round of the test of willpower, in a matter of seconds, Crystal showed that our hero possessed SSS-class talent. And a moment later, Jin shattered that crystal, thereby proving that he didn't exploit any system vulnerabilities in the test, but passed thanks to his strength. Fan and Lee are finally breathing a sigh of relief. Their worst assumptions had not come true. Moreover, our hero was the first person to reach that rank. It used to be thought impossible. But most of all, General Chang was surprised, for he had been sure to the last that Jin was a liar. "I think you have no questions left, but as far as I know, in order to get the first place in the queue in the project, you have to pass the duel assessment," said our hero with a smile. "You don't have to worry about that. The Commander-in-Chief said you're out of the queue," replied the Deputy Commander-in-Chief. Jin was well aware that he was already out of competition. However, Jin wanted a duel, as it would allow him to fight Max, and since Jin wasn't officially first in line yet, he has the right to challenge the leader to a death match. And that right he gladly exercised, challenging Max to mortal combat. I like the attitude of our hero. With the strength he has, such determination is necessary. However, killing an innocent guy is too much. Chan was well aware of his predicament. By accusing our hero of fraud, realizing that Max wouldn't even last 10 seconds in a duel with the genie, the general shouted happily, "Sir, please forgive me, but you're already in the first place, so there's no point in fighting anyone." "General, I understand your feelings, but officially the rules," replied our hero. Jean was technically right, and the general knew it. Instructor Hu suggested a duel in 3 days, when our hero is used to his new powers. Actually, there was no good reason to wait so long. But the Commander-in-Chief knew very well that Hu didn't do anything for nothing, so I agreed to his proposal. The deathmatch between Genie and Max will take place in 3 days. Left alone, the commander-in-chief asked his old friend why he agreed with our hero. Have you forgotten about the mission? If we don't get enough power units again, all our planes and tanks will become scrap metal. Hu replied sadly. In other words, it's to prepare our hero for his first important mission, on which he will have to fight not only with mutants, but also with other third-level awakened from other countries. It's not so much a test of strength as it is a test of spirit. After all, killing a human and killing a mutant are completely different things. But 3 days, Hu gave General Chang to prepare Max to the best of his ability, so that he had the slightest chance of survival. It was a cruel plan, but in this situation, it was the best we could come up with. Hu also suggested telling everyone that Jin had SS-Rank talent so as not to attract too much attention. Meanwhile, Max waited at home for his father, expecting good news. The guy was also convinced Jin had found a loophole in the system. But he could tell by the look on his dad's face that he wasn't. Son, I have bad news. He wants to fight you in 3 days, Chang said sadly. This news made Max feel sick, and cold sweat began to appear on his face. He tried his best to calm his son down, but all words were meaningless. Furthermore, the general revealed that he volunteered to give up the top spot, but Jean insisted on a fight, which means that his main goal was to just kill Max. Father, let's kill him! The boy shouted, angry. Let's kill him before the fight starts. I thought about it, but no matter how much we want to, he's stronger than both of us. And besides, there are guards around him all the time, Chan replied. And his family, already guarded by the army, so, the man added with tears in his eyes. However, the general contacted his friends who helped Max. The kid wanted his dad to get him the best gear he could find. You won't need them. This idiot is always talking about rules. We can use the rules to beat him too. When the time comes, we also have suicide bombers, the general added angrily. 3 days later, the capital dueling arena. This arena has been equipped with an advanced protective barrier to avoid unforeseen situations, and their duel will be judged by 3 awakened third-level high-stage awakened ones, chief of which was a man named Aaron. Before the fight, Aaron handed our hero a list of opponents for tonight. Taking the sheet in his hands, the genie asked in surprise, "Am I not fighting Max?" By the rules, our hero can challenge Max to a fight, but other candidates can also challenge him. Before the fight with Max, our hero has 9 more rounds to go. Realizing that this was just another trick of General Chan's to exhaust him, Jin demanded that all the challengers come out at the same time. By the rules, it's not forbidden. However, the upper management wanted to avoid Max's death, so they created this list. Upon hearing this, General Yang ran into the arena and asked Jin to give up on this idea. But our hero stood firm. Then Commander-in-Chief Lee intervened in the conversation. He approved of Jin's idea, but ordered the judges to strictly enforce the rules. Before he started, Aaron was given clear instructions to keep Jin alive at all costs. Since the Commander-in-Chief had given the order, the arrow summoned all 10 participants, including Max, to the arena. At that moment, the guy's anger was overwhelming. He could feel Jin mocking him. Before leaving, Chan asked Max not to get into a fight unnecessarily. The upper management decided to prohibit the Awakened from using additional equipment bonuses to keep the participants safe. All the Awakened people who participated in the duel today were General Zhang's men that he saved from the death penalty. Not wanting to waste time on a bunch of losers, Jin activated a storm of swords. About half of all the mercenaries were killed in the first attack. Unfortunately, Storm of Swords didn't make it to Max, but he got lucky this time. Those lucky enough to survive, Jin quickly sent them to the afterlife without a second thought. When suddenly, inside the arena, there was a huge explosion. It looks like one of the Awakened brought a hand-carried nuclear grenade, and in the next few seconds, our hero killed everyone else, leaving Max to watch. And when it came to him, the little guy was saved by a coalition of judges. Even though it's a fight to the death, Aaron got clear instructions on how to save Max's life. Sensing our hero's superior strength, the guy decided to run away. It was his only chance to get out of here alive, because you can't kill anyone outside the arena. But Jean was much faster than Max. Judge's barrier. Jean cut his head off, and he did it with such speed that even the Commander-in-Chief didn't see it coming. Our hero used his instant phantom skill, and did what he had to do. Holding his son's head, General Chang literally went mad. Overflowing with rage, the man rushed towards our hero, wanting to tear him apart. The general was close, to the peak stage of the 3rd level, so he was many times superior to the genie in strength. Our hero was confident that he could defeat him, but at that moment, a fan intervened in their duel. Stop the general's attack. The man understood his feelings, having lost a son himself. But there are rules to follow. The Commander-in-Chief was ready to pardon Chan if he would stop now. As suddenly, our hero showed his middle finger and shouted, "The son is nothing, and the father is an old loser who can't accept defeat." Those words made Chan even angrier. Fang realized that he would stop at nothing, so he took extreme measures and knocked him out before it was too late. Coughing blood, the general said, "Commander-in-Chief, he was my only son. He risked his life for the country. Restore justice." Commander-in-Chief Lee could feel how hurt he was, but couldn't do anything about it. After all, our hero was acting within the rules. Seeing the general begging on his knees began to provoke him even more. Jin was only doing this for one purpose. He realized that Chan would retaliate, and it was best to take the threat now. Leaning over General Chang, Jin whispered, "You had the chance to kill me. But if you lay a finger on me, you and your family will pay with your lives. You little bastard. I'll kill you right now. You'll pay for your words." General Chang shouted angrily. Fan, just like our hero, didn't like the general, but he understood his plan immediately. If Jin had attacked first, it would have been considered a provocation for which he was held accountable. And since the general was the first to attack, the genie is the victim in this situation, and Fan has every right to stand in his defense. After seeing what the awakened at the peak of the 3rd level can do, our hero realized that he still has room to grow. Because compared to them, he's pathetic and weak. While protecting our hero, Fang miscalculated his strength and accidentally killed General Chang. And Commander-in-Chief Lee really didn't like it. Fortunately, Instructor Hu had a plan for this. Meanwhile, our hero thanked the Fan and the Commander-in-Chief for saving his life and restoring justice. Looking at Jin, the Commander-in-Chief whispered, "You're not as easy as you look. If you want to become famous and assert your power, I'll help you." After which, Lee suddenly announced that the first project award ceremony would officially open tomorrow at the capital's main square. Many of General Chang's men realized that after his death, the same fate could befall them. Particularly his deputies. The Commander-in-Chief has entrusted Inspector Hu with the organization of tomorrow's ceremony. He also ordered the results of today's fight to be classified, and all information about our hero's abilities to be withheld. And if anyone declassifies this information, charge them with treason and execute them. Morning of the next day, the capital awoke to solemn salutes and a loud parade. At the very beginning, they announced that our hero is the main test subject of the project. And due to the results of the level-up test, the genie gained unlimited access to resources and S-rank secret materials. Also, his monthly salary has increased many times over, and he will receive a legendary set of equipment and the title of Deputy Commander of the Army. During the ceremonial part, the Commander-in-Chief asked if our hero wanted anything else. "Thank you. My reward is already great. But I'm afraid I have one more request. I want to participate in the War Council that will be held in 2 days, answered Jin with a serious expression. Hu and Fang were confused by this request. They didn't understand why he should be there. But given our hero's rank, the Commander-in-Chief simply couldn't refuse the request. In just a few days, our hero's prestige grew by leaps and bounds. He wanted to speak at a military conference to avert disaster in the East Sea. As Deputy Fan suddenly approached him and asked him to follow him, the man took the genie to a closed military district. From today, he will live here. This place is not only strictly guarded, but has luxurious living conditions. The reason Fang brought our hero in person is because he has a secret mission for him. This assignment was an international mission to the Zombie Kingdom. Each country was allowed to send a maximum of 2 mid-level 3rd level awakened, and 8 initial level 3rd level awakened. In addition to mutants, our hero will have to fight other awakened from other countries for rare resources. Luckily, Jin has already been through this ordeal in a previous life. The only difference is that last time there were no rare resources, and there were few participants from other countries. And for successfully completing this mission, not only will Jin Da be a necessary resource for the country, but also the system will reward him with S-class weapons and blueprints for a space aircraft carrier. Jin didn't have to do this mission because he had only upgraded to level 3. However, the Sword God system left him no other chance since it was a mandatory mission. Despite all the risks, the reward is simply awesome. The space aircraft carrier alone is worth it, not to mention the weapons. Realizing that with such a weapon mankind could not only withstand, but also defeat mutants, Jin swore to himself that he would definitely accomplish this mission. After leveling up, the system gave 2 more slots for skills, and before the start of the mission is still a few days, you need to maximize your power. Suddenly, our hero felt the approach of the awakened at the peak of the 3rd level at an incredible speed. Recent events and that incident with Max and Chan, our hero thought they were enemies. This awakened man turned out to be a very hot young girl who introduced herself as a personal security guard with the codename 009. Before our hero could understand anything, this girl jumped on him with a hug. Her breasts were so big and soft that our hero blushed. It was now the bewilderment on the face of our hero. The girl knelt down in front of him and began to slowly twist her juicy ass. But after that, there were no fewer questions, and the girl continued to show different poses from the famous book. And after showing all her skills, she's better at making out. But he stopped her. "Sir, have I done something wrong?" "Of course, I'm wearing a lot of clothes. I'll fix them now," the girl replied, bewildered. "Stop!" shouted our hero loudly. Apparently the higher-ups thought it would be a good way for Jin to rest after a hard day. But they've underestimated him if they think that's a viable option. And to make sure she wasn't the enemy, the guy decided to scan her. There were 2 antennas on her head that were connected to a chip in her brain, and her body was also wired with a lot of wires. The native brain is long dead, and all thoughts are controlled by the chip. She looks more like a robot than a human. After realizing she was not the enemy, our hero asked why she chose to become one, but she didn't say a word, only grabbed his hand and brought it to my forehead for Jin to pass his master's verification. Once verification is complete, our hero has full access to her memories. Her name used to be Bella. She was the only daughter of the deputy commander-in-chief, but despite her family's almost limitless resources, she couldn't beat leukemia. And before she died, she asked for her body to be released for research so she could help her country. My father tried to talk him out of it for a long time because he knew he'd become a soulless machine. But Bella believed that the body was only a shell, and even after death, her soul would live on. Thus, the only and beloved daughter turned into a mechanical warrior who follows any orders. After learning all this, Jin realized why she'd become like this. But the only thing he couldn't figure out was why Fun thought it was a good idea. After a little thought, our hero gave his first order. He wanted her to delete all the materials she had learned today. And now, Jin wants to go to the Military Research Institute to get the S-Rank combat skill. Considering everything that had happened, our hero felt that he should thank Mr. Fan for his support and faith. At the entrance to the institute, our heroes were met by Director Venter. After getting acquainted, our hero got right down to business and asked for 2 S-Rank skill books. Books like this are incredibly rare and worth a fortune. Even in the Metropolitan Military Reserves, there are not many of them, and the institute has only 4 books of this level left. As Director Venter suddenly hesitated and ridiculously said, "Sir, I understand your eagerness, but right now there are a lot of level 3 heroes in the capital, and the remaining skills have a bunch of problems. Don't worry, I have no complaints. Despite all the flaws, I still want to look at them," politely replied our hero. Skills left in the institute include Hellfire, Despair Strike, Death Song, and Fade. After reading their descriptions, it became clear why no one took these skills. Despair Strike can only be used in mortal danger, and Hellfire requires special conditions for use. Song of Death requires 20,000 points of spiritual energy. And to use the Fade, you have to stay still for 10 seconds. But despite all the drawbacks, our hero decided to learn the Song of Death and Fading Away, hoping that the Sword God system would correct these flaws. The possibilities that open these skills surpass their shortcomings and best suit the style of our hero. Got what he wanted, Jin thanked the principal and left. What had just happened shocked Venter. He didn't expect our hero to be so careless in his choice of skills. The Song of Death, our hero chose because of the fact that it can use the souls of enemies, and Fading can overcome levels. After strengthening the system, the Song of Death evolved into Reaper of Souls, and Extinction into Divine Wrath. Soul Reaper. After killing a target, you can capture and use its soul as a puppet for 10 seconds. Combat abilities correspond to the level of those who died while alive. Divine Wrath summons a shadow or ghost for 10 seconds, dealing massive devastating damage to 2 selected targets. Fortunately, and this time our hero was lucky, and the system did not disappoint him, removing almost all the disadvantages of skills, with the exception of energy consumption. Thanks to new skills, our hero can summon an army of undead, and when meeting with the peak of the 3rd level, come out victorious. Back at the military base, our hero was already waiting. He was greeted by a stern-looking woman in military uniform who questioned him about the 2 skills he had just learned. "What's the matter? Can't I learn the skills I want?" Jin asked with a smirk on his face. "You can, but you should have left the information before you left," replied the stranger. "Since you are new, for the first time I forgive you. But this is a strict rule that everyone should follow without exception," the woman added. At which point, Mr. Venter runs into the room with a look of horror on his face. "Mister, I forgot to tell you. If you want, you can leave information about your new skills. It is not obligatory. But it is recommended, said Vontaire, addressing the genie. Nonsense. It's mandatory, the woman shouted angrily. Learning that giving information about his personal abilities was optional, Jin refused to reveal any information. Looking at her, our hero realized that this woman is from the science center, and under the guise of the interests of the state, is acting in personal interests. Realizing what she was trying to accomplish, Jin decided to be radical and drew his sword. But even after that, the woman didn't stop threatening him with court-martial, having already signed his own death warrant. After all, the law says that an awakened person can kill anyone if it threatens his own life or the integrity of the state, and her threats may well be considered a threat to life, and given our hero's special status, a threat to the state. A moment later, the woman was on the floor, her face pinned to the floor by a foot, and Bella did it because she heard that our hero's life was in danger. Having neutralized the enemy, the girl waited for further instructions, and in that moment, the woman begged me not to kill her. Jin wanted to kill her, but he had recently killed Max and Chan, and another murder would raise the concerns of upper management. After some thought, our hero asked Bella to move the woman aside so she wouldn't get in the way, whereupon the girl kicked the woman without the slightest hesitation, with such force that when she hit the wall, the woman's neck broke. As she fell to the ground, she stopped breathing and blood spurted from her mouth. Apparently, she's dead. Even though Jean didn't kill her personally, Bella did it on his orders. When she realized she'd overdone it, the girls apologized and offered to call an ambulance. When suddenly our hero said, "Wanter, did you also see that it was completely accidental?" "Of course. She accidentally hit the wall and died. It has nothing to do with you," replied the headmaster nervously. And to avoid arousing unnecessary suspicion, our hero asked Vanter to remove her body. When they were alone, Bella apologized for letting our hero down. "Don't worry, I was going to kill her anyway, and this way it'll be a lesson to anyone who dares to get in my way," the genie whispered. 2 days later in the conference room, when they saw our hero, the people present were shocked. They did not understand what a man like him had forgotten here. The reason they treated him that way was because he was too young. But there was one man among all present who looked at the genie with particular interest. It turned out to be a minister of the Southern District Armed Forces named Tenzen. For them, their place, our hero was approached by a girl and gave him a tablet to familiarize himself with the order of today's meeting. In his previous life, Jin has spoken at meetings like this many times, so he knows how to do it. But now he has to pretend that he's here for the first time and doesn't understand what's going on. Jin's performance was not on the schedule, but he could have entered of his own volition at the very end. Also, given his newly acquired privileges, our hero has a vote. After learning that our hero wanted to perform, the girl who counseled him became visibly nervous. She was instructed by her superiors to counsel Jin not to do anything stupid. So as soon as she knew he was going to join, she decided to report it immediately. When the Deputy Commander-in-Chief Fan came over to him and said, "What's up? You've got your eye on the receptionist here? Isn't 009 enough for you?" "The assistant you sent me is the best, and he didn't earn any of it. I just said I was going to speak and ask the receptionist to report it," replied the genie politely. "Now I see why they put me next to you. What are you going to do?" the fan added with a laugh. "When the time comes, you will know everything," answered our hero. Realize that our hero will not reveal his plans. The man advised him to be extremely careful. The military can be scarier than mutants. They do everything in their own interest. A couple minutes later, the meeting began. 9 people spoke in 6 hours, 6 of whom made proposals concerning other countries. After the formal portion, Commander-in-Chief Lee gave the floor to all comers, after which voting will begin. Of all, there were only 2 people willing to speak, Jin and Tenzen. The Minister of Armed Forces of the Southern District was the first to speak, accusing our hero of being incompetent. "Kid for the first time. Here, apparently mistaken button for the first time forgive. Sit down and listen to grown-up uncles," added Tenzen. But it didn't end there. Tenzen wanted to press charges in public. "Dear Council members and Commander-in-Chief, a couple days ago this young man advanced to the Research Institute, after which he committed a brutal murder. He killed the director of the Science Center and my wife. No matter how talented he is, he can't break the law. I propose that he be stripped of all resources and privileges," shouting Tenzen. Now I see why the minister was so suspicious of our hero from the start. After listening to the man, the Commander-in-Chief asked our hero if it was true. "There's been a misunderstanding. A couple of days ago I actually went to the Research Institute to study skills. But Ms. Wang was too excited. She tripped and accidentally fell, hitting her head on a tree and died from the collision," replied our hero. "You little bastard! Say that again if you have the guts!" Tenzen suddenly shouted. Why are you yelling so much? I just said that your wife saw a handsome man like me for the first time in her life, tripped and died, Jean added, smiling. At this point, there was an uproar in the hall. Everyone was not happy about this outrage, because such matters should be handled privately, not at a general meeting. But despite all the remarks, Tenzen demanded that Jin be stripped of all privileges and executed immediately. At this moment, Deputy Commander Fan once again stood up for our hero. But the genie asked me not to avoid trouble. Prayan wanted witnesses to come forward. But since this case should now be handled by the police, Jean decided to make a suggestion. Our hero wanted Tenzen removed from office, and all armed forces along the South Sea put on alert. Because according to him, in about 23 days, there's going to be a level A disaster there. Of course, such a request now seems absolutely absurd, because no changes have been observed in the South Sea for many years. Silence. Jin, since he had the courage to speak out like this, bring some proof to your words, Commander-in-Chief Li shouted angrily. Of course, in C-Zone C-13, there was a 3% increase in the presence of spiritual energy, and in Zone D-51, there was an increase in earthquakes, and the Navy reported malfunctioning 13 warships that Mr. Tenzen ignored. And the monster attacks have more than tripled, Jin added. Minister hid all this information very carefully so that no one would know about his corruption schemes. But all of the above information was officially confirmed by a recent request from our hero. After listening to our hero, the Commander-in-Chief asked Tenzen if Jin's words were true. The minister realized that no matter what his answer was, he would still be removed from office for negligence. And since his life was already over, he decided to take our hero with him. Luckily, Jin was able to react in time to block his blow. But the Tenzen decided not to stop there. He wanted, even at the cost of his own life, to kill our hero. But the minister's next attack was blocked by Fang, and even that didn't stop the man. He realized his life was over as soon as he attacked Jin, so there was no point in stopping for anyone. Upon discovering the threat to our hero's life, Bella rushed to his aid. Jin was grateful for Fang's help, but he wanted to finish off Tenzen on his own. But the man was too proud to just back down. Besides, Fang was superior to Tenzen in all aspects several times over, so it was only enough to finish him off in a few seconds. And just at that moment came to the rescue. Sensing that the Tenzen was still breathing, she decided to finish him off, and with one powerful blow to his back, broke his spine, leaving him no chance. What just happened was a clear demonstration to everyone here of what a rebellion against Jean can do. When it was over, the genie once again thanked Vaughn for his help. I probably already owe you one, he added jokingly. An incident of this magnitude is incredibly important. However, the meeting continues as the Commander-in-Chief considers Jean's suggestion very important. But the Council couldn't find a unified solution. Many thought Jin was right. But the other half thought that nothing pointed to an imminent attack, and mobilizing all troops along the South Sea could create huge financial problems for the country. Even though there were still too many questions, we had to vote. In the end, there were 14 votes in favor, 1 against, and the rest abstained. So our hero's plan has been approved. The Commander-in-Chief has ordered immediate mobilization of the military and evacuation of civilians. The next morning, a fan came to the genie's house with some presents. These boxes contained the legendary equipment he was promised, and the 2 rare materials he requested. But unfortunately, there was no falcon bone fluid or anomalous ghost core in the vault, because these items are incredibly rare. For example, the human falcon single-handedly destroyed several large cities in southern China 30 years ago. And as for the abnormal ghost, its core emits abnormal phenomena, so they are destroyed immediately. But the fan has submitted an official request to the Hunters Guild and is awaiting the results. Unfortunately, this time was not a success for Jin. He wanted to improve the sword god system before going on the mission. Taking the heart of the mountains in his hands, Jin absorbed its energy, and the system notified that system pumping had begun. And equipping a legendary skill called Guardian Mask increased dexterity as much as 12 units, and a new blade named Elemental that increased strength and dexterity by 9 units. He also had special skills, Fierce Flame and Extreme Cold. Just even holding this sword in his hands was simply amazing, like being on fire and ice at the same time. It's pretty powerful, so it takes a while to get used to. When using the skill Fierce Flame, a light touch is enough to unleash lava-level heat. But what's most awesome is that sword skills can be switched instantly, with the previous effect intact. Considering the minimal expenditure of spiritual energy, these skills can easily be compared to SSS-Rank skills. After leveling up, Jin was able to use the Wheel of Fortune that he had been saving until then. All of his stats were excessive except for his stamina. So he hoped that this time something would fall out that could remedy the situation. In the coming battle, all indicators are important without exception, but unfortunately, this time our hero fell cloth combat vest. Although perhaps he is so useless which epic level. Upon opening the description, Jin made sure of it. Despite its flimsy appearance, this vest is immune to bullets and explosions. It also increases resistance to fire and cold, and the damage received is reduced by a third. Plus, this vest has some interesting skills. After killing Jin, can use his soul for protection. Simply put, this vest goes great with new skills. But first you need to test them in real combat. The next morning, China's team assembled for the mission. Everyone here was excited that our hero was running late. Besides, capturing resources and successfully completing the mission is not the team's main goal. Their main goal was to keep the genie alive. In this case, not all members of the team were happy. Many thought that our hero was not worthy of such attention. But orders are orders, and in case of danger, they will fulfill their primary role. And 15 minutes later, Jin arrived at the warship, accompanied by several level 3 guards. As suddenly one of the team members introduced himself as a team leader named Lix. This guy specializes in melee attacks with dual talents of strength and agility. Jin's first order of business was to ask the Elix to provide all the information he could about awakened ones from other countries. Today's mission will involve 6 countries and will be the fiercest battle in the last 40 years. On receiving the list of contestants, our hero saw only unfamiliar names, so he assumed that most countries decided to send some scum. But Lix told the genie that last time, these people killed almost all the awakened ones from China. Unfortunately, these are all the available chapters at this time. Thank you so much for watching. Leave your opinions in the comments.